So my name is Eric Lopez. I am one of the owners of Nuttall Sewing Center, and I've been in the business full time now for 20, going on 25 years. And embroidery has always been a part of the business since I came in. And I've been in the commercial embroidery world. I've done digitizing, so I've got a really good handle on what it takes to get a great design into a machine and those type of things. And I've been on with the Brother in particular. So when we talk about Brother, we're also referring to Baby Lock. So some of you may have the Baby Lock version of this machine. Some of you guys have the Brother version. The only thing that's different is going to be the designs that are built in. And we're going to be focusing, I wish I had a 6 needle here, and I'm hoping to have one next week that I could have side by side. But I think you're going to find, for the most part, you guys are going to be able to work in everything. A lot of what's on the 10 needle is the same on the 6. So you're going to see a lot of similarities until we get into the camera, which is built into the 10 needle. And then some of you might have a Persona, which is our single needle. I do have one of those. It's to the right over there. So we will be working on talking about some of the features of the Persona as well. There is another class that I would strongly encourage you guys to take. I was teaching that this morning in Pleasant Grove. It is the Embroidery Customer Course class. And that's where we go over needles and threads and stabilizers and designs, how to check a design and make sure it's good. All of I think it's probably the most important class for those that have an embroidery machine. And the reason I say that is because it's going to teach you all of the things that you need to do to make sure that you have a great experience with embroidery. And so all the stuff before you hit the start button. So that's a really big thing. And I encourage you guys to sign up for just Brother Embroidery Customer Course class. And like I said, that's going to be a class where you're not going to necessarily, we're not going to touch any of the product on the machine. It's all about all the things you should do before you go in and touch the start button. You want to come in here, little guy? This is my son. It looks like he's hanging out at the store, getting ready to go. We're kind of waiting for, can you say hi? Hi. That's Joe. Joe's the next generation of embroiderers coming our way. So that's this little guy, and he's got a little brother hanging out around here somewhere else. But my goal today and in the next couple weeks, and I hope it aligns with your goals, and if not, then I'll apologize in advance. But my goal today is to really help you guys learn to use all of the functions on the machine. So by the time you leave here, you understand what each one of those things will do. And again, having great embroidery requires more than just understanding the functions on the machine. Being able to use the right stabilizers, the right needles, the right threads, the right designs, all of those things are a big part of that as well, and that's in a separate class. But our goal is to go through all of the icons, make sure that you understand how they work, what they're supposed to do, and we're going to come up at some point during class where maybe one of the things that you're trying to do isn't working, but that's my goal. And then at the end of that, that allows us to have a little bit of a different communication from here on out. We're going to be able to, when you're trying to work on, that hat, which we are going to do in class, or that jacket back, and things aren't quite working out, we can eliminate all the little things, all the stuff that we've already talked about in here, and have a little bit more one-on-one conversations as tech support for this product for you guys. So that's my goal. That's the plan. And as you guys have questions, feel free at any point to unmute yourself, ask away. This is as interactive as we can possibly get, but still allowing you to be in front of your machine. And I think that's the most important part for me, because in the past, what we used to do is everybody would come in and I would have a camera on the machine and you would see what I'm doing up on a big screen. But I think it's really important that you have to be the driver at some point. You can't just be the passenger. And so during COVID, we obviously learned how to do some things, and we invested in some equipment and found out that certain products that the Zoom works really, really well. And for other products, not so much. Software classes on the computer, done a couple little tests here and there, but most of the issues that we have, at least that consumers have, our customers have when they're operating the software, a lot of those things have, it's usually me walking up to the computer and showing them this setting needs to be changed or that setting has to be changed. So we found that there are certain classes that lend really well to Zoom and certain classes that are a little bit of a struggle. But with that said, some of you may have software. And so what I would encourage you to do is get on the list for the wait list for the next class. And that way we can get you a hands-on experience with, you know, P Design 11 or Palette 11. Those are the two softwares that we typically use with this product. I teach that class and I do it in the Murray location. So some of you, that's super convenient. For some of you, it's going to be a little bit of a drive, but I will make it well worth your time to be there and help you get comfortable with software. So I'm going to give it a couple minutes and just ask the question, are there certain things that you're expecting or hoping for out of this class? And maybe we can have that conversation now and say, yep, that's going to be covered in detail, or that's something that we'll have to do a little bit more one-on-one. So if you guys have certain things that you're looking for, feel free to jump in as I'm kind of just rambling away. Product-wise, the 6 needle has been sold out. So I'm waiting for another 6 needle to come my way so I can have that as part of, again, the discussion. So if you're on a 6 needle, everything that we're going to be working with, you're going to feel really comfortable finding on your machine, maybe in a little bit different spot. If you're on an older 10 needle, so we're working now with the 1055. This has been out for a couple years. So I know some of you maybe have a 1050 or even a 1000. There's going to be features on those machines that are on this machine that are not available for that product. So if you're trying to find something and you're saying, hey, Eric, it's not here, I'm probably going to ask you which machine you have. And then one kind of setting up the structure for the class. If you guys have a question, if you could just tell me, you know, maybe who it is that's talking. So if you say, hi, this is Eric, and I've got a question on such and such, that would be great. That's a little bit more helpful for me to interact with you guys. And if you type anything, it's going to be hard to see. I could see it now, but as we get rolling, it's going to be hard for me to see any of that. So like I said, just feel free to unmute yourself, and then we will get those questions answered. I think we're ready to begin. And then if I need to admit anyone, I will. I'm going to have you do me a favor, my little guy over there, Joe. Can you go just grab me a chair and roll it back here? That'd be much appreciated. So we're going to start with the 10 needle, and that's this guy here. And whenever you turn on the machine, it's going to give you a couple things that it's going to be asking for up on the screen. And so if I were to go in, and we're going to do this really quickly, I'm going to switch this and get a closer view of that screen for you. So when you first come in, it's going to come up and it's going to look like this here. You can change that in the settings, meaning you can turn that off. You can put your own pictures in. That won't be something we're covering during class. If you want to know that, we can get into that a little bit later on. When I touch the OK button, it's going to first tell me that the machine will move. Keep your hands away. And we're going to go in, touch that. The head of the machine, you can probably hear that. It's just moving and rotating around on there. And so we're all set. It'll also a lot of times tell you to put a new drop of oil into the hook, which we will cover in class. You're going to want to do that about every 3 or so 4 bobbins is my recommendation. So every time you run out, 3 or 4 bobbins, some people do it every bobbin. I think every 3 is definitely going to work. But we're going to go in and take a little bit of a tour on here. So we'll first go back into the machine and show you kind of an overview of the machine itself. So in here, we can take, your screen. So as we work through this, I'm going off the assumption everybody has their machine to this point, meaning you've got the little thread stand or the wings. There's just a screw back here that I'm loosening. And when you had the machine, these were tucked in. Those have to be opened up. If they're not opened up, that's going to be a problem. So that has to be opened up. You have to have your thread mast up, which is this guy here. And originally, when you had the machine delivered, it was down. So we put that up, and then you need to make sure that you lock in that top part there. And then lastly, when you receive your machines, there's 2 screws with a little red bracket sticker on it on both sides. you had a little yellow paper that was across the front of the machine telling you to take those off. So again, I'm going under the assumption that we're all at least to that point there. Any questions, jump on in and let me know. So we're going to first start with threading of the machine is going to be part of it because that's obviously going to be a necessity. So I am going to go through the threading. That will give you guys some time to maybe get started. And I think if we have other people joining in, that also gives us a little bit of time to get them locked in. The little stylus that I'm working with, there is a home for it. It's right up here behind the screen. So you can click it in and take it out. So that makes that very convenient. I would suggest always putting it back there. And then we're also going to talk about some of the little goodies that came with your machine. So one of them, and there's actually two little guys that are going to look like so. These two guys here, one of them has a blunt end. So if we look at the tip of that, I'm going to move that up to there. It's just blunt on the end of that. The other is going to have a little forked end. So the one that has the little forks, like this one here, that one is for threading your needle. Okay, so where I like to put this and where the home stays, or where the home is for this little guy, there's actually right here, there's a little drop spot, and there's a hole right here on the arm. You can just drop that in there. We used to sell a lot of these. I'm glad that we don't have to inventory it any longer because now people do keep it right there and it's always convenient. The next one is for changing your needle. I just keep that one inside your accessory tray. So that blunt end is for changing the needle, and we will go over that and how that works a little bit later on. As we work through this, you're going to find there's tutorials. So I'm going to switch over to the screen to show that so you have an idea of how that works. So if we were to go into on the screen here, you guys, down in at the very bottom, I have a little movie screen, I would say, a little film strip with the question mark. If I were to touch that, that's going to give me a couple things. One, I can go through, there's operational guide section, and it's got some different options in there. As I select this, so let's say I'm going to thread the machine, so I'm going to touch that threading. It says put 10 spools, 10 thread spools to embroider. Well, not so much information in that, but you can click on those. There's one for maintenance. But we're going to go in, and I want to go into the videos, because the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to want to thread the machine. And when I touch that, you're going to notice that it's going to come up with a video. That video is going to be a guide that shows you exactly how and what we need to do. So it's showing that you're going to put the spools onto the spool support. You're going to go up. It's important to know on the back spools, there's two eyelets that you have to go through. And if you notice on there, they're both labeled number 1. So you go straight up. Your thread should always come vertical off the spool. You're going to go up through that little gate. And then later, you're going to close that gate. So we're going to talk about how that works and what that is. You're just going to follow it down. And the reason that there is not sound on the machine is Brother would have to, and for Baby Lock, they'd have to dub this. This is a worldwide product. So the same machine goes from here that goes to who knows where. And rather than charging us more to have that dubbed in languages, they just went through and put the visuals. So this is really important. It's showing the direction, and you can see on top of your machine those little lines in the guides. It's showing that right on there. You just follow that straight down. And as it goes through, later on, I'm going to show you what we're looking for to make sure that it's threaded properly in that little, those are the tension units up top. This is just a guide. You're going to come straight down. You're going to go underneath. You're going to go back up, and you're going to go through from right to left the thread. That's your take-up lever in there. And something to think about, down in here, in that area, it's really easy for your threads to get caught and move over out of the track. So you want to make sure that they stay in their right lane, is what I would say, as they're coming down the front of the machine. Next, they're going to go in and they're going to talk about the needle threader. But before you use the needle threader, and that's why there's that hook, I can pause this video. And right up here in the back, there is a little area that's a guide that we have to use the little hook to go around that guide. And that's what they did. And we're going to do that. I'm going to do that live in a minute here. And then you're going to go in, and you're going to choose to use your needle threader button. You're going to touch that needle threader button. and it's going to automatically engage what they call the needle threader down here. And I'm going to show you guys a super easy way to make that threader just work every single time. A couple things that'll compromise a needle threader. If there's something keeping the thread from pulling through. So if your thread gets caught onto something, you're going to end up with a bent needle threader. If you have a needle that's not all the way up into the machine, you're going to have an issue with the needle threader. So we really want to just make sure that our thread is always coming through nice and clean. I'm going to turn this off now on there, but you really want to make sure that that needle is coming through nice and clean, and or the thread, sorry, is coming through nice and clean, and that your needle is all the way up into the machine. So this is a quick area. We're not going to go through all of these, but this is an area that you can see videos and work through. I'm going to return that. We're going to say okay to get out of there. There's a lot more information, but I'm going to start and I'm going to thread my machine. And I'm also going to show you how to assign threads to your machine. So there's a settings menu. So when I am talking about, anytime you guys hear me in the next few days or the next few classes, if you hear me say anything about settings, this is the area that you're going to go to. Right in here, you're going to see that there's a little paper looking icon, and that's going to take you directly into settings. Once you're into settings, we can go in and we can move through, and we won't go through every detail on this. We'll hit some of those, but on page 3, this is an area where we can go in and set up our threads and do some different things. There is another quick way to get into that screen, and I want to point that out to you guys, because it's a feature that's on the 1055 that we didn't have previously. But instead of going into settings, you also have a couple icons over. You have this little icon that looks like a little hoop, and then some needles. If I were to touch that, that brings me into another section where I can also go in and work with my threads. There is a little paper icon with a thread. That will take you directly to the same page, which is page 3. Before we progress, really important, and I want everybody to do this, because as we move forward in the classes in the next couple weeks, if we're not all set up the same way, it's going to be really difficult for us to kind of maintain a nice even flow with the class. So for those of you that are on the 10 needle, I want you to scroll over, and I want you to go to page 7, and I want you to change to I want you to activate manual color sequence. So I want everybody to make sure that they have that turned on, and I'll give you guys a minute to do that. Do we have anybody in the class that's working on the Persona, the single needle machine? If so, let me know, because I want to make sure that we're kind of paying the right attention to all the different directions. No single needle users in the crowd. Yes.
Can I ask a question? Okay, I ordered an array 6 needle.
Yeah.
July 6th, and I still don't have it, so I don't have a machine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that I'm super glad, and this is Rebecca, is that right?
Yes.
I'm super glad that you're in the
excited,
class.
But
me too. We're both in the same box.
I've watched so many. Okay, we've watched so many videos, and here's my question, because I know right now with the way things are, it's really hard to know about shipping and stuff. But no one's able to tell me what I'm looking at time-wise of when I might actually have a machine in the space behind me.
Yeah, I'm with you, because I'm supposed to have a 6 needle up here for class, and I can't get one from Brother or Baby Lock right now. My best guess, though, if I was to guess, because they told me that we should have, this was the exact words. They said that they should have all of my back orders cleared by the end of this month. So I'm crossing my fingers that doesn't mean the last day of the month. Like, I'm hoping more end of the week, but that's not going to happen. But I do think, Rebecca, we've got some daylight at least that we can look at and say, okay, something's at least moving. So I expect that to be fairly quickly at this point, even to the point where I think I'm going to have a 6 needle up here next week. That's at least my plan.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Okay. You bet. So we don't have any single needles in the house, huh? That works.
Eric,
Yes.
mine doesn't allow me to change it to the manual color sequence. What do I need to do to fix that?
So who am I talking with?
Sandy, sorry.
So Sandy, which machine do you have?
I have the 1055.
And so what does your screen say, just so I have an idea?
We have.
When I go to push on it has the different colors of the on and off. That one does not have a color on it. It's not responding to the on or off.
Then that means we've got a different setting turned on your machine. So let's see if we can figure that out. And that's part of what we do in this class. I always tell people, you know, this class is always different depending on the attendees and what kind of questions come up. So I'm going to switch into camera mode that's a little bit closer to the machine. And let's just kind of go through this and let's make sure that all of our settings are the same. So let's go to page 1.
Okay.
And you just tell me, if there's something different on there, let me know so I know what we're dealing with. Does it all look the same?
It's somebody else. If everybody else could mute because it keeps taking you off the main screen.
Yeah.
It's
okay. So as long as your screen, can you
I
see
can
my
see it
screen?
now. No, yeah, but oh, here we go. I believe everything's correct for that.
So it all looks the same as mine, except for the frame is probably different.
Yes, the frame looks different.
But the next layer down where it says number and 1, 2, 3 and original and all that.
Yep, that looks good.
Okay, let's go to the next page because we got to figure out what's maybe turned on or different on yours. And let's check this next page. Thread trimming, all that looks good.
Thread trimming's on. Okay, the rest of them are in black. Standard. Yep, that looks good.
Let's go to page 3.
Okay.
Now, you might have threads that are already in here.
I do.
Okay, so that's all right. But what about, is this activated or anything here?
Nope.
Okay, so let's go to page 4. Anything look different on that page? And you guys, this is really good for all of us. This is one of the best things about doing the class this way, because normally you would go home and you would find out that you can't do what we're trying to do.
Okay, the background image is off. Off. They're all off.
And Eric, on the 1050, we have a different page.
I think she's on a 1055. Is that right?
Right. As
Yeah.
we're going through ours is different.
Yeah, it will be. So the 1050 and a 1000 are not going to be quite the same as on here.
I think that looks
But Sandy, you have a 1055, correct?
I do, correct.
Okay. And everything's good on here.
Appears to be, yes.
And page 5.
Okay, on, off. Okay, the screensaver, 9 minutes, displays 5. I think that's appropriate, yes.
That should be fine.
Yep.
6 should be fine too. There shouldn't be anything in 6. While I am in 6, you guys, and those of you that are going through yours, find your page and change this. Instead of millimeters, change it to inches.
Okay, I did that.
And then we're now into 7.
Yeah, mine's it still doesn't have an option.
Let me see. Okay, do you have link turned on?
It's blue. How do I know if it's on or off?
Is the blue on?
Oh, there we go. No, it's off.
Okay, let me do this. I just switched mine to see what would happen. So I'm going to turn my machine back on. And then we'll kick over. Do you happen to have a design up on your machine?
I don't think so. Let me double check.
I got to go into here and switch mine back. So I turned that on. So
Oh, I do. Do I need to turn that off?
Yep, I think that's where we're going to find the issue to be.
Okay, how do I get it off, Eric?
So let's do this. Down, just close the page that you're on.
Okay. Okay, I think I get.
And now that's going to, so now you're at the startup screens or what, well, so you can see on there. Let me get mine turned on. So
Oh,
what we
it did.
want, do you see the little home button?
Yep.
Just tap the home button
Okay.
and it probably is going to tell you that it's going to delete your design or something like that.
Yep, I just deleted it. So now
Okay.
back to 7.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be okay now.
Okay, now I'm turning the manual sequence on.
On.
Yep, that was the problem. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Okay. So you guys, this is how the class works. And so as we're working through this, again, this is one of the advantages to setting it up this way. I really want you guys as much as you can to follow along. And I know, Rebecca, that's not easy for you to do, but hopefully both of us next week are going to be hanging out with a new machine up here. Okay. So now that we have the numbers, that we have manual color sequencing turned on, there's several ways, you guys, that you can go in and you can change or assign your threads. I like to teach one way because what I find is when I teach all 3 different options or more, I have a tendency to have students get caught between using part of option 1, and then using parts of that, and then using parts of 2, and then things just never seem to work out right. So with manual color sequencing, it's going to actually put you more in control of the machine, which I think is pretty important. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to scroll over, at least on here, and you guys can find it if you're on a 1000 or a 1050. I won't be speaking along those lines per se because it is a different product at this point, a couple of years removed. But you can find a lot of these same things. This is where you're going to find your version number. So when there's updates, they're going to actually suggest that you go to this page and check your version number to see how it's working. This also tells you, how many stitches and so forth are on your machine. And we have 0 because I haven't even ran this one yet. And as we scroll over, we're not going to get into this right now, but yes.
This is Debbie. So yours says 1.13. Mine says 1.11. How do I upload?
You go on to Brothers, like you can just Google Brother Support. If you go into Google and type in Brother Support, and I wouldn't do it right now, but Brother Support, then it's going to take you to their Brother Support page. I'll try to share my screen really quick. Hold on one second. So I'll show you guys because everybody at some point is going to need to see this. So if I were to go in and I was to do, let's move this down a little bit. If I were to go in and let's just do, and you type in Brother Support and you hit enter, it's going to bring up the first thing it's going to say is Brother Support Center. So when I click on Brother Support Center, it's then going to ask me for my model number. So I have a PR 1055 and it starts to eliminate those as I type the number. We'd click on that and I assume everybody can see my screen, right? Because I haven't heard any complaints yet. So I'd click on that. And this is where we can go in and it's asking us, do you want to see other support items? No, I just want to see the 1055 or whatever model you happen to be working with. And once we click onto there, this is where we can go in. It has the manual, the online manual. Some people like to download that and they put it on their iPad or their Kindle, well, whatever device they want. But then right here where it says downloads on our online solution center, we can click on downloads. And then this is going to, it's asking you what version of Windows you have. I have Windows 11. And when I click on that, it's showing you what updates are available. So you would update to right here to 1.13. That work? Does that help you?
Yeah. Do you have to have your computer hardwired into your machine to update the machine though?
No, because they're gonna give you, once you click on that and you actually go through the full settings, or sorry, the process, Debbie, it's gonna tell you, it's gonna give you the instructions. You're gonna download the instruction. It's gonna tell you how to do it if you want to be wired in, or how to do it through a USB stick. So at
Okay.
that point, you
Thank
just
you.
follow those instructions. I will tell you one thing that you should one thing that you should be looking at when you do that is you want to format your drive, because if you don't format your drive, then what's going to happen is it might have other things on there. Some people just erase what's on there, but you're better off formatting, because when you format, what's going to happen is it's going to completely erase it and reformat it so it doesn't have any leftover software from whatever else you put on the stick.
So you're talking
that
the
is one-
USB.
Yeah, I would format that
Okay.
drive before you do it. Okay. So I'm gonna go back into here. And what I want to do is we're gonna go onto this page here, you guys. And this could be different for a 1050 and a 1000, but this is kind of what we're working with. On here, we're going to, and on a 6 needle, it'd be the same. It would be 6 needles. So on here, I can choose up here at the very top. This is awesome. I used to not use this because it didn't have all the threads, but now it's got a ton of different threads. So I work with a lot of ice cord and a lot of Floriani, and there's all different threads in there. But what we're going to do is I'm going to take on here, this is isocord. And so I'm going to start to put, before I thread my machine, I'm going to go in and put these items in there. So on needle number 1, the color it says is the number that I'm going off of on here. It says 1840. So I can try to choose the color by matching it up. Or if I've already selected a brand, I'm going to go into number and I'm going to type in 1840. That's the color that they've come up with. It's pretty close, but that is the color that references this one. When I select that, what I'm going to do is I'm then going to choose to anchor it. I think on the 1000 or 1055, they might have said, or 1050, it might have said set, but we're going to anchor this. So I've now anchored that up here to number 1. So what I would simply do is I would then go up to my machine and we would go in and we're just going to place that on the number 1 spool. So this is the first step that I would do. I would go in and set up all of your threads from the get-go, numbering them. I'm going to show you really quickly. This one is going to be an isocord spool. So when I do isocord, I'm going to go in and we're going to take, and on the isocord, it's as simple as just switching that over. Sorry, not isocord, Floriani. This one's a Floriani. We already did isocord. Excuse me. So I'm going to go into Floriani. And again, we used to not have this. So I'm going to select Floriani as my brand. I've got the number, and the number on the Floriani spools, it'll say PF. So where it says PF, that's PF 800. That's the number I'm going to use, is the 800 number. And I'm going to anchor it. I need to actually, sorry, I made a mistake here because I didn't change my thread up here. So this is going to be really easy. I'm just going to swap the white one because I've assigned it, and I'm going to put it on number 1. I'm going to go back into my isocord. And I'm going to remember this time to change it. So I'm going to go to number 2. And that was the mistake I did. That's what I made. The mistake on the first time is I was still selected on number 1. So now I'm going to switch this because I now put white on number 1. I'm going to put this color on here. 1840 is going to be on number 2. And I'm going to put those anchors. And really important, you guys, you can see the anchors showing on here. If I touch the little anchor icon, it takes the anchor off. And I'm going to explain to you in a little bit what those anchors do and why they are so important. I'm going to continue through. I'm going to go in and put my threads in super quickly on here. My next one is ice cord. I have to go down to number 3. I'm in the number, and so the number is 1055. It is a brown color, so it's a dark brown. That's what it's going to show up on here. I'm going to set that. And again, I'm just putting them up on the spools. I'm not threading them through currently.
Eric?
This guy here, did somebody have a question?
Yeah, I do. This is Diane. Is it picking the isocord and the Floriani, is that just a 1055 feature, or can we do that on our 1050?
Yeah, I think that was part of the 1055 when they introduced that. So you can
Okay.
go on and surely check on your machine and
'Cause,
see
well,
if it has.
Yeah, I can't see it now, and I thought there was a place, but I can't find it.
They have
But I-
different thread brands, but they didn't have isocord and Floriani before.
Yeah.
And so
what I
that's
thought.
been a feature that they've added that I've certainly enjoyed because I use those threads so often.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You bet. So that's a big plus for those of you that are on that machine. So again, I'm going to go, and the tricky thing is you got to remember to always switch to the next one that you're working with. Now, if you guys do not have yours set, you can see it's green. If you guys do not have yours set to manual mode, then what's going to happen is when we get to the last thread, it will not let you anchor it. And we really, for the method that I'm going to teach you, we really want to be able to anchor all of them down. Now we have a problem. I ran into this. This is a purple spool, but there's nothing up on top. That's where I can go in. I can touch color, and now I can kind of scroll through here, and I can assign like a purple color to that. Okay, so that's when I would go in and I would use the color option. Now, if you don't have the option on your machine to pick the brand, then I would opt into putting it in by color. So that would be the way that you could do it on your machine currently. I'm going to place that guy up on top. And we're getting closer. Got a couple more to put in. And again, I'm just going off the color number 4103. So I'm going to go into number, and I'm going to put 4103. And we're going to set that baby. And I've got 2 more to do. That one was number 8. All of your even threads are in the back. Your odds are going to be in the front. And here we have a Floriani. So I've got to switch this over. So we're going to go into Floriani. Now, the nice thing about this, you guys, and this is 702. Once you've done this, the nice thing about it is the machine remembers where these are as long as they are anchored in. So you need to have them anchored in. The last color is going to be an isocord. So we're going to switch this back over. I'm on number 10, and we're going to go into its color 0111. And there we go. So I've now successfully anchored all of my threads up on the top. And then the next thing that we're going to do is work through threading them. Does anyone have a question on where we're at so far? All right, you guys are sure making this easy. Nobody's finding difficulties yet. Okay, so all of my threads are lined up on the very top. We've also labeled them on the screen. And the advantage of anchoring these, you guys, now when I turn this machine off, no matter what I choose in the design, those threads are going to stay on there. If you choose not to anchor it, let me explain how that system works so everybody kind of has an idea. If you chose not to anchor your threads, then what's going to happen is any thread that doesn't have an anchor, you're telling the machine that's an open slot for you, the machine, to decide what thread should go there. So let's say that you have your threads selected. You've put them up there. You chose not to anchor them. And you bring in a design that's like an American flag, red, white, and blue. And you happen to have red, white, and blue up on top here. But your red and white and blue that are obviously red, white, and blue do not match the color number, not the color, but the number that the design says is the thread that you're supposed to use. Because when you buy designs, different companies, they use different threads that they assign. If you do not have your threads anchored down, the machine is going to automatically look at the design and it's going to say, oh, they don't have number 905, whatever. And let's say that's a blue. But you do have blue up there, yours just isn't 905. What the machine's going to do then is it's going to look for the first spot that's not anchored down, and it's going to automatically change that to that number. Now, if you don't go in and change your thread up there, it's going to be a problem. So I like to make sure you're in manual thread sequencing because it takes the ability away from the machine, as long as you've anchored it, takes the ability away from the machine to go in and just start changing your threads. Okay. And I think you're going to find when we start to assign thread colors, you're going to find it to be a little bit easier in manual thread sequencing. All right. So I think everybody's kind of there at least, or if not, you have the basic understanding. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to thread this machine. And if yours is not threaded, and I'm not worried about threading it all the way, I'm going to get a couple going and then we'll move on. But we're going to take, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to come from the very back side. So on number 1, and I'm going to take that and we're going to go directly up at the top. I'm going to go through the eyelet number 1, just like you saw in the video. And the video you can watch on your own machine if you want right now. We're going to go through this little gate. Now this gate, you guys, right here is a lever. This will open and close. You'll see these little eyelets right here. It'll open and close those. We want it open when you're threading, and then we close it when it's time to actually embroider. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go straight down number 1. We're going to come in through here, in through the back. We're going to go under this little pre-tension. There's a little guide back here. I'm going to switch this and see if I can't make working with one hand be an option. So when I go into here, hopefully nobody's getting dizzy. So up into here, this little guide right here, all that is a pre-tension. So I'm going to take it underneath there. You really don't need to make adjustment to that. The next thing I'm going to do is follow the guide that's up on top. And I'm going to go directly around this little guy here. This is your tension unit. And here's one thing that we need to notice. So watch on the inside. Hopefully you guys will be able to see this. Kind of hard to capture on camera. Yeah, it's going to be really tough. So on here, there is, so you'll want to watch on your own, maybe at home, but underneath, you're going to see these little discs. And as I pull on the thread, that disc is slowly rotating. So you'll have to look at it on yours because it's not going to show up on mine. But that disc is rotating. That disc should be rotating clockwise. If it is not rotating clockwise, what's going to happen, you guys, is you're going to have your machine coming up telling you there's a thread break. This is where your sensor is located. It's underneath here, and that rotation is what's telling the machine whether or not you have a thread issue. So we're just going to come straight through there. You're going to follow the little diagram up on top. There's a post here. It shows the thread going into this other post, straight into here, underneath. There's right here, I have a lot of extra thread that's kind of hanging out here. So I want to clip that. So there's actually a cutter right here that I'm going to use. So right on the front of the machine, I'm using that cutter. So I don't just have a smaller piece to deal with. This is the lane that I was talking about. So right here, your thread has to come down, it has to come up through the take-up lever and straight down that other side. And what can happen is sometimes your thread, when you do this, it can jump to different sides of these lanes. You got to make sure it stays all the way in that lane all the way through. So I've gone through there. We're going to go down through the top. And then the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to make a switch here. So give me 1 second. But the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take it, and I want to get a camera on this a little bit closer. See if I can do this for you. I'd like to get a little bit closer underneath. And what we're going to do is, so this is going to be very tricky. And the reason I say it is I'm about to try to thread this, oh, wrong thing, with one hand holding the camera. So up underneath here, this little guy, this is where we have to get back behind, is right into here. There's a little guide. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take, and I use the little tool. So I'm going to do this. I've got, again, I'm just kind of holding my thread with one hand. Sorry, guys. So we're going to go into here. I've got that thread nice and tight. This is where we use that little hook. See that? And you push it to the back. You're going to push it all the way to the back, and you're going to see that little stem in the back, and it's going to hook right back here, right behind that. Then we pull forward, and your thread catches inside that guide. Okay? So you can see these little guides right here. We got to get behind that. And that's what this little thing is for. Once we've done that, we go over to our machine. We're going to, if you want to make sure that you're on the right spot, the right needle, you can touch this guy right here. And then you can touch the needle. We're on needle number 1. If I were to touch needle number 10, the whole machine is moving to needle number 10. So we're going to go back to needle number 1. And now this is ready to thread needle number 1. Now, if I were to look up here, I wanted you guys to see this. I have an issue. The thread has jumped over the track. It's into the wrong spot. So I've got to fix that. My thread right now is coming down this side of the track. I've got to lift it out. And I've got to bring it over. And pull it in through, sorry, and pull it down into here. So lastly, so we've already gone through, we're in through this part here. The next thing that we're going to do, I've already pushed, I'm going to push the needle threader button, which again is right here on the machine. That brings my threader down. And you guys, this threader is the easiest threader to use because all you're going to do is you're just going to take your thread, touch it on any of the thread needles that you're doing. Just put your thread to the right side of the foot. Take it from the right side of the foot and keep it across the foot. Pull it from right to left all the way through. And all you're going to do is go straight up into this. I'm going to do it with my other hand or with the little threader guide. Sorry. So we're going to go into here. And I'm going to take this. I'm going to put it to the right side of the foot. I'm going to rub it from the right to the left. It's going to go up underneath here. And when I say up underneath here, I'm talking about this little holder. You're going to then come straight up. You're going to go straight up here, over the top, down, and that cuts. Once you've done that, you're then going to hit your needle threader button. And when I hit my needle threader button, it's going to take it back and it tucks that thread up underneath. Okay? So that needle threader is super easy to work with. It takes a little bit of practice, but once you start with it, it's incredibly simple to work on. Okay, so I'm going to go in and we are going to, I'm going to switch again. Let's do. So the next thing I'm going to do needle number 2. So I'm going to do that really fast and get that one going. That one's going to be in the front. So your even numbers, you only go through one eyelet up on top as far as that back bracket is concerned, this bracket here. You're going to go in through here. You're going to come straight down. You're going to do the exact same thing that we did before. At any point, if you feel any resistance on your threads, check your thread and see if the thread is getting caught on something. I know that happens sometimes. So we're going to go in through here. Again, little guide. You're going to come straight down, all the way around, through the post. And the rest is very simple. We're going to go in through here, right to left. Keep it in the same track. Sometimes it jumps out. And then we're going to go into underneath. So I'm going to select needle number 2 now up on my screen. So again, right here, and I was able to get there from this button, this icon. And now I'm going to we're going to push this up through the back side of that. We're going to hit our needle threader button. You're going to take your thread on the right side of the foot, rub it across the foot from right to left, straight up, that little holder that's underneath here. And then you're going to come up, you're going to go over the top, cut, needle threader button, and then it's done. Are there any questions on that? Everybody's pretty comfortable there? Fantastic. I just moved my little stylus in here. All right, so that's going to be your top threading. Your tensions are up here. These are adjusted up on top, and you have 10 individual tensions. So we're going to talk about how you check your tensions and make sure that they're correct or have a baseline. But you first need to go through, get all of those threaded, make sure that everything is running clockwise when you pull on the thread, and then you're going to work to the lower half. So next I want to go in and I want to show you what we're going to get when what we're looking for when we're working on the bobbin. There's a little weight. Some of us don't know what all these little things are for, but that's why you're here in the class. There's a weight. That's what this is. It's in your little kit. And the way that this works, you guys, is you're going to take your thread, your bobbin thread, and I prefer magnetic bobbins. So what's going to happen is on these bobbins, there's a magnet on one side. So one side's a magnet, the other side is not. So the green side is not, the other side is. The magnetic bobbins, they help keep your bobbin from over rotating at such high speeds when you're embroidering. You're going to take this, you're going to place it into your bobbin case, magnet towards the bobbin case. And when you pull on this, it should spin clockwise. So when I do this, and I pull on it, it spins clockwise. Okay? There's a little slit on the side that you're going to go up through. So when we take this guy here, there's that little slit. I'm going to take my thread up through that slit. I'm going to pull it up, and it's going to go in. This is your tension spring. So that little guy right there is the tension spring. So your thread ultimately has to come out of the spring like that there. Okay? If we need to adjust our tension, which we're going to get into, there's 2 screws on the side. The little screw that's sticking out does not get adjusted. The one that's still small but bigger than the other is that one there. That's your adjustment screw. So if we need to adjust tensions, that's where we do it. So I am going to get back into my kit of goodies. And inside here, you are going to find just a flathead screwdriver. So here's what we have to do. We're going to take this guy here. This is how we decide if we need to make a change. We are going to thread and take out my thread. You can kind of see it against my shirt. You're going to place it in through here. And it doesn't matter what you do, tie a knot. You just need to tie that weight. So we're going to get that weight, this one, and I'm just going to tie it onto the thread. So it's hooked onto here. It's in my bobbin case. And now the test that we have to do, and you have to be careful on this, because if you take your fingers and you happen to be touching or squeezing this too tight, the test is going to not be correct anyway. So what we're doing is this weight. This is really smart, the way they've designed this, you guys, super smart. So you want this just coming straight down. And what you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to kind of let it just sit there. Now, if I were to bounce it, we want it to start to slowly, if I'm bouncing it, and that's what it's doing, it's slowly moving down till it touches my hand. Just a little bit of a bounce should do that. That's a good tension. Now I'm going to screw it up. So if I were to take this, I'm not even going to tell you, if I were doing this test and all of a sudden I've got my thread here and I'm holding it. Right now I'm holding it back. But when I let it go, watch what's going to happen. It just drops all the way down. If I let it go, it's going to keep going. That is an indicator that your bobbin tension is already too loose. Okay? So you really need to have a good baseline to start off with. And it just means that you have to understand how to use the weight. Once you learn that, this system is fabulous. So I now know my tension is too loose because I made it that way. I'm going to thread this back through that little hole, that little guy. We're going to tie a knot on here. I just broke the other one off so I could get a new one. We're just going to take this. We're going to tie a little knot. Get a little more thread, sorry. And so I'm just going to tie this weight back on. And again, you guys, this is so for tension purposes. So here it is. I've got it on. We already know if I let go, it's going to fall because we haven't made any adjustments. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that little screw, that screw that's there, and I'm going to turn it clockwise. Clockwise will tighten it. So righty tighty, lefty loosey. I'm going to take this. I'm going to tighten it. Now, when you make an adjustment, understand that screw. Let's say it's sitting at 12 o'clock and you want to adjust it to 1 o'clock because that's the adjustments. You usually go in 1 hour increments off that screw. When you're adjusting your top tension, it's a different story. So I'm going to adjust that. I'm now going to take this and I'm about to let go and see if it drops. Yep, it's still dropping. So what do I have to do? Make an adjustment. You're going to keep doing that until it finally is holding the weight. So I made an adjustment. I'm going to drop it. It's now holding the weight. So I'm going to test it by just kind of bouncing it a little bit. And now it's starting to move down. And now there it is in my hand. Okay. That's a great tension. That's a good baseline to start off with. Any questions on that?
I've got a question.
Yes.
I'm back. So tell me if I'm right on this or wrong. If you have a really good needle in, and you change your needles often with embroidery, and you know you've checked all of your threading, but you're still getting a few loops here and there, isn't it normally the tension on the bobbin that you need to check before you check the tensions on the top? Wouldn't you do your weight test on the tension of the bobbin first after you've checked the other two things? Is that right? I don't know.
Yeah. So you always want to just periodically do the weight test on your bobbin. So your bobbins, that's what I always do, is just take and periodically check the bobbin tension. If the bobbin is holding that weight, now it's a top tension issue.
Okay. So if your needle is right, your threading's right, you'd go to your bobbin first after those two. Is that right?
Yeah,
I don't.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
That would be the suggestion.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. And that's a good point, guys. Sometimes your bobbin just needs to, or sorry, sometimes if you really want to have an idea of the issues, or let's say you just have a problem, you always want to go in. First thing I would do, I change my needle. That's the first thing I do. And if I change my needle and that doesn't solve it, I change that needle again. So I try 2 new needles. And the reason I do that is there's a chance that, there's a certain percentage of needles that no matter what, even in a new pack, in the process of making the needle, maybe the eye didn't get polished out all the way. And if it's got anything in there, a little nick, it's going to catch on to that, and that's going to be an issue. Okay. So that's the first thing I do is I go in and I change the needle. If it doesn't solve it, I change the needle again. If the second needle solves it, I throw away the needle that didn't work. And I figure, you know what, that happens. So that's kind of the process. So always try a new needle and then maybe new thread before I make an adjustment. But I always check on these machines, you're always going to go in and check that bobbin too, because that could be the culprit. After you've done that, I think this is pretty simple, but you're just going to take that and you're going to, if you hold that little latch back, that's the latch that holds the bobbin in. If you have a magnetic bobbin, it's going to kind of hold anyway. And then you're just going to take and you're going to put it in. It needs to click in. There's a little spot in here. It just needs to click into place. So that's all we're going to do is click that into place, into there. All right, so we're going to take and we'll talk about cleaning and oiling down here in the hook as well in a minute. Are there any questions on balancing that tension on the bobbin? We haven't done anything with tensions on the top. We're actually going to get into that next week. But I want to make sure that that's clear. Awesome. All right, so you make sure that your top thread is threaded. I'm just going to recap. Assign your threads, assign them to begin before we start. So if we go in, we want to go in and make sure that all of our threads are assigned. I want everybody to make sure that they're in manual sequence. Let's see, I've got a couple people that are wanting in. Give me a second here.
Eric,
Yeah.
I guess maybe this question is too soon. When you set the anchors on all the threads, what happens in a design that has 12 threads or 16 threads? Do you have to just, or you'll probably go over that at some point, right? And I'm
We'll
jumping
go
the
over
gun.
it. We'll end up going over it. But what's going to happen is in a design that has that many, let me just switch this.
I can
In a
wait till you
design,
go over.
what's that? There we
Turn
go.
that one off.
In a design that has that many colors, what you want the machine to do ideally, and this is why this works, is once it gets to a point where it doesn't have a thread that works for it, meaning the color, then the machine's going to stop. And we're going to put a stop on there manually. So I'm going to show you in this how that works. So we can manually set a stop because we chose to manually be in control. So I would let the first 10 go through, and then I'm going to put a stop up on there that says, all right, after you've done these first
Walk
10,
further on this
stop
and I
the
feel it.
machine.
Okay.
Let's see. Hold on 1 minute, guys. My view kind of changed here, and I don't really want it to be on that. There we go. Okay, so as we get a little bit closer, I'm just going to mute some of the view that just came in. So as we get a little bit closer to that process, Diane, and those that are wondering about it, we'll talk about that because we're going to go in and we're going to manually set those. All right, so the next thing, after you've gone in, you've set all of your threads, you've threaded everything, everything's done. We can go in and we would touch OK. So what I want to do now is I want to go through a couple other processes on the screen of the machine. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about how to get in there and clean things out and oil. But I want to really hit up a few of these icons and make this a little bit easier and more comfortable. So when we first go in, this is called the home screen. So the home screen is what the machine originally comes up to. So once you're on the home screen, the next thing that's going to happen is you've got to go in, and this is the difference between Baby Lock and Brother, is really the designs that are built in. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple things. Right now, my machine is thinking that I have a cap frame on there. And how do I know that? Because up on top, it's showing a little cap frame. So maybe what I should do, and let's do this beforehand, I'm going to put on the arm. So you have an arm A and an arm B that usually come with your machine. There's other arms as well. But I'm going to go in and let me show you really quickly how to put the arm on. The arm goes right underneath here. And the arm looks like, let me find it in my bag of goodies. I got a big bag of goodies over here. So this is arm A. And so arm A is what we're going to use for most of our projects and hoops. And it tells you when you need to switch that and use a different arm. So on here, we have a couple things that are going on. You've got 2 screws that are right into here. That's just a holding spot for those. Inside your kit, you have this really cool multi-function tool. So that's what this guy is. It actually does a lot of different things. This is what I use to loosen and tighten the little knobs that are on there. These little knobs, you can use this. It's got a little screw on the other end. So later we can get in and we can take off well, this one's actually not the one for that. So we'll bypass that. But what we're going to do on here is we're going to take this guy, these two little guys that are in here, that's just they're in a holding spot. So right now I'm going to take those and unloosen them, take them off. And a lot of you have probably already done this and been in this little process already. I'm going to show you something really important. This means that the camera work's going to get a little shaky because I'm a one-man band on this right now. But when you take this, all you're going to do is you're going to go in, you're going to find there's some little holes that are back there in the back. So let me get more to a mobile version. And this is where I'm really just winging the thing by myself. Back into here, you're going to see a little post that's in there. So the post that I'm actually talking about is this one right here, sticking up. I'm on the left side of my machine. And what I want you guys to see that's pretty important is there's another one right here that I can move up and down. See that? That is your hoop sensor. So when you put on hoops, this little guy moves in and out, and that's what tells the machine which hoop is on there. Now, if you forget to tighten a screw down when we put this arm on, that sensor is not going to be in the right spot, and therefore it's going to tell the machine you have a different hoop on than what you actually have. So it's going to be really important that we make sure that we get that correctly. Now, putting this little arm on, I'm going to take, and again, I'm just kind of one-handing this. It's pretty simple. There's a nub sticking up, and I'm going to use the tip of this to show you. There's a nub sticking up right here. That's the one I just talked about. And if you follow this down, there's another nub right there. So on your arm, there is also a little nub or a place for that nub on both sides to fall into. So when you do this, all you're going to do is you're going to take this, you're going to line it up, you're going to slide it over until you get that in place. So I'm, again, trying to line this up with one hand. I'm just going to move this off for a second because I pointed those out. And I'm going to put that on there really fast. And then I'm going to point out the two screws that I really need you to watch and work with, okay? So I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to place this arm onto here. It's now on. I'm going to take my screw. There's one screw hole on the right. So this one I'm going to screw in. There's a screw hole on the right. And then there's another one over here that's on the left. And this left one is pretty critical, you guys, because the left one, I'm going to move this up so you can see it. So the one on the left, when I'm facing the machine, this little piece here that I just angled out, so this guy here, that has to be over the top of the sensor. And it'll automatically go there 90% of the time. So I'm going to keep that in place. And then right where there's the nub, that little screw hole is where this next little screw goes. So the phone call that I'll get is, Eric, I'm trying to do a design and it says that the hoop is too small for my design, but I have the biggest hoop that's on there. The easiest thing to do, and this is always the fix, every single time it's the fix, is go in and make sure that that screw, both of them, is screwed all the way down and that it's over the top of the sensor. Okay? Now, if I need to adjust this, So this is now set for the wider hoop, and you're going to see that. Let me grab the wide hoop so you can see what happens. So I'm grabbing the big hoop. Hopefully we don't have a crash over there. So you have a bunch of grids that you can use in the hoop for alignment. I don't find that I need those very often, these grids, because your machine is going to have a camera in them. So for the 6 needle, yours doesn't have a camera, but yours has a really awesome laser. So I use the grids more on the 6 needle than I do on the 10, but even on both, that feature on the 6 needle is fabulous as well. So right now we're going to take this, and if I wanted to, let's switch this up so you can see this a little bit better. So we've now talked about those screws that are in there. And now we're going to go in, and all I'm going to do, if you look on here, this little wing lifts up. So that one does, and there's another one over here. So when I go to put this hoop in the machine, you guys, your hoop doesn't matter which way it goes, by the way. It can go this way in the machine, or it can go this way. That's a cool feature because some commercial machines, if you didn't hoop it right to begin with, you got to unhoop it because not all of your bolt can fit on this back side. On this machine, it doesn't really matter. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to angle it from the top down. So that first part right here is going underneath that little spring. And all you're going to do is push that straight forward. You're going to hear it click. You're going to check on here to make sure it clicks. So inside here, there's a little nub. Let me switch that over one more time. But there's a little nub on the left, and then there's a little one on the right. So when I take this guy right here, so that little nub, it needs to be into there. And when I come across to the other side, that little nub, if it's like this at all, that means it's not in. It's got a little open hole. Just simply push your hoop back. You saw it pop through, and that's locked in. So what I'll usually do, you guys, is I'll take, and before I do anything, once I get that hoop on, I just do a really quick check by grabbing the hoop and pulling it back towards me. If it doesn't pull, and you don't have to pull hard, if it doesn't pull, then that means both of those sides are locked in and we're good to go. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take this hoop off. So when I go into here, there's a little thumb spot right here. There's another one on the other side. I take my fingers underneath. I'm going to keep my body out of the way. So I put my fingers underneath. I push down on the thumb. And with my fingers, I slide that out. And I would do the same thing on the other side. So same thing, push down and slide out. Once you get it out past that first part, the whole hoop just slides right out of the machine. So you push down on here, you lift up on the bottom and slide your hoop out. So your machine has a sensor. This is super cool as well. So what that means is when we go in, it recognizes which hoop you have based off of where these little screws are on the left-hand side. So it's the left-hand side screws that we're going to open and close. All right. So when I do this, there's a screw, the one that's underneath here that I tightened earlier, and then the outer screw. So there's the small screw on the inside. There's the big screw on the outside. I'm going to loosen both of those. So I'm just going to use my little tool. I'm going to loosen those. And now this whole left side can slide in or it can slide out. If I'm using a smaller hoop, so I'm going to grab a smaller hoop. So now I've got this hoop here. and I want to put it in, the right side always stayed stationary. So if you look, I can put the right side, start to put it in, but look at the gap between here. So I just slide this over. I take the hoop, I lock it in place, just like I did before. And I'm going to push this all the way back. And then I'm going to hear those, and I'm going to see those little nubs lock in. Once those are locked in place, I'm going to go in and we're going to check on our screws. So this is the left side of the machine. So I'm going to tighten this one down. And I'm going to tighten this one down. You can use your screwdriver, but the little screwdriver that came with it, but you don't need these super, super tight, guys. They just need to be, they don't need to be cranked. Okay, they just need to be tight. So now we would have that smaller hoop on the frame or on the machine. So you have to have that arm on. Now remember what brought us into this in the first place. We came in here because lastly, when we were on the screen of the computer, we ended up seeing up top, what was showing up on top here was a cap frame is what it was showing. But now look what happened. This indicates which hoops you can put onto that bracket. Now, when I bring in a design, really important to watch this, and you guys, I don't need you to do anything with yours right now, but if I go into here and I bring in a design, right now it thinks I have the small, it knows that I have the smaller hoop on, but if I go in and I bring in a design that's really big, what's going to happen is, and it's hard to tell on your screen, at least the way that this is showing right now, but what's going to happen is it's going to gray out. So these items, the hoops that are no longer available, they turn gray. And the only hoop that will show are the hoops that you can use for that design. So this design is way too big for that smaller hoop that we put onto there. I love that feature because you always want to use the smallest hoop possible when you embroider. You're going to get the very best results by using the smallest hoop possible. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do, so this is the opening screen, and I'm going to give you just a really quick tour. This little icon right here, if it shows up, what that icon is telling you is you guys are in manual threading mode, manual sequence, which is awesome. That's what we want it to be. The next thing that we're going to look at, these are going to be your designs. Again, there's a difference between designs in the Baby Lock and the Brother, but the product is the exact same. They all come out of the Brother. Brother manufactures both products when it comes to this machine. So these are just, imagine this is like a big filing cabinet. When I click on this, this is like drawer number 1. And then when I click on it again, those are the designs that are in that drawer, that set. Once I'm in here, something to point out, I can change on this. I can change, these are called thumbnails. So if I were to touch this icon right there, it's saying I want to see more, I want to see less thumbnails, but I want to see my images bigger. If you want to see more images, you want to make your thumbnails smaller so you can see more. That's what this does. So you can make the decision on what's going to work best for you. Inside here, I can scroll up and down right here. So I can do it this way too. So we can just scroll if we need to. And then we can just go in and we can say, okay, well, this is the design that I want to do. Understand, you guys, that as you're doing this, all you're doing is previewing your designs. You haven't actually selected a design for the machine to use. So in this process, all I'm doing is previewing the designs. Once I'm ready, I'm going to touch Set. And that is how you select your design. Okay? If I want to leave this screen and I want to just go back, anytime you want to go back to how the machine was when you first turned it on today, you just go home. That home button will come up. It's going to say, is it okay to cancel the current pattern? You say yes. You don't say yes, you touch okay. The machine won't listen and recognize your voice yet. So as we go through here, we're going to take, I want to come back in here because there's there's a design that's really important. And on the baby lock, I think they've got it a couple layers down, but it's still in there. But this one right here, this is where we go. And it's that one right there. This is what we use to test tensions. Okay. So later on in class number 2, we're gonna really get into tensions and adjusting them and understanding them and manipulating them. All right. But just kind of lock that into the back of your head for a minute so you can remember that that's what we're doing. And again, oh, this is really awesome. This is the quilting section. And so you guys, this machine, you can actually go in and do like a whole border. So you can set this up and you can do edge to edge. You can do a lot of things using the camera and lining things up. Or if you have the, on the 6 needle, they have, again, there's a laser that we're going to use later on to go through. So this is where we can get into designs. This section here, this is borders. You can tell it the type of border you want. Let's say I want to do the heart. And then it's going to say, and how do you want it to actually embroider out? You can see as I select these are all different styles of doing that type of a border. So this is the shape of the border in here, and this is the style. And I know you guys are all on mute, so I won't ask you a question back. Normally, I like to ask questions back, but you'd have to hit set to accept it. Okay? Everybody's understanding of that? If I do a return, and again, not all the machines have the same designs. I'm just giving you guys a quick tour. This one goes in, and these are actually stitches that are typically available through your sewing machine. So you can use those, and you can incorporate features that are from your sewing machine. Buttonholes. Buttonholes are now on some of our machines. The reason they do that is so many people are doing home deck with their embroidery machines. So they're doing pillows and things like that. They're even using a buttonhole to put at the top of so they could slide a curtain rod through their curtains that they make. So you just make big buttonholes. So which you wouldn't do with your sewing machine that big, but you could on your embroidery machine. Really cool. So that's a feature that they're using inside there. This next one, I really enjoy this. It's pretty awesome. This is for monogramming, and it's a diamond monogram. So you see different sections in here. You have a 3-letter diamond monogram in the full diamond shape. So when I select that, here's how it works, you guys. Now I'm going to use the same letter so you can see all of this the same way. When I go in and I touch the B, that's the left side. Now, if I don't change anything, it's just going to keep putting in left side Bs. That's not what we want, right? So I'm going to delete that. That deletes back. If I want this one, I can go to the center. That gives me a center B. And I can go to this one. That gives me the right side, and that creates our diamonds. Pretty cool, right? So next we could go in and we can hit set and we could save that. We're not going to do that. We're going to return. This is a 2-letter diamond. Again, if I just do that without changing that, that's what's going to show up. If I tell it that I have a right side to this, those are the same letters. I'm using the same letters so you guys can see that, how that works. Pretty simple. Lastly, this is diamonds, but they're just straight across. So there is no center or middle or anything like that on there. Inside the diamond monogram, you can select this. These are another set of borders. So if I select this guy, I would bring that in. Now that I have a design in here, and we'll revisit this, so don't stress, I can click add. And that add button only appears if you already have a design in the machine. And then I could go in and I can pick my letters and I could say, okay, I want you guys to go in and fit inside that monogram shape. Okay. So pretty easy. I'm going to go to home because I want to just get a new page. We're going to come back to these because we're going to spend a little more time in alphabets. We do a lot in alphabets. They're really, it's a big plus to the machine, but I want to explain the next one over because it looks like an alphabet because we can see it as an A, B, C and all that fun stuff. So our eyes recognize it as that, but this is not touch screen alphabet like you're used to. When I touch this, if I go into here, normally I could go in and I could spell my name by hitting E and then scrolling down to find the R. So I can go in, these are all uppercase. So I could scroll down and find the R. But if you notice, it does not work that way with these. So even though our eyes tell us that this is a letter, therefore it's an alphabet, the machine thinks of these as a design. So it's no different than a soccer ball and a flower. Okay? So these are just really big. So if I wanted to spell my name with this font, just so you know, I'd have to go into E and I'd have to hit set. And then I'd have to do and I'd have to probably move it, but let's do an add. I'd have to go back into here. I'd have to find the R because my name is Eric. And then I would have to hit set. Now, if you notice on here, there's different sizes. So look up here, there's an E. If I scroll down, there's another size of E. That's why my R is so big. So I need to get the smaller R. And now I hit set. So what happens is whenever you bring a design in, your design is always centered over the top of the other. Not over the other one. They always come in centered. Had I moved my E to begin with, the R would have shown up still in the middle. Any questions so far? Nope. All right. We're going to keep rolling. So the machine really is pretty easy, you guys. And I think the big advantage is it's really visual. What you see is what you're going to get. All right. Provided you've stabilized and done all of that correctly. So now that we understand all of these, all of those fonts are that way. This is an applique font. It does it as an applique. But again, I can't simply type in Eric. Doesn't work like that. So you'd have to bring them in individually in there. This is a cool font. So I can go in, let's say I do an E or an L because I want to do my last name is Lopez. I can have an L and then I could go in and I could add, and this isn't necessarily on all the machines, but I just want to point this out while we're in here. I can go in and say E, look at on here, because now I'm into regular fonts. We're going to come back in, so don't stress on this one. That's not an R, that's a P. E-R-I-C. So I could take that, I could set that in here, and I could place it. I could also size it, which we're going to learn how to do. But that's I think it's a cool font to have built in the machine. A little bit different. Okay, so we're going to go into the home button. We're going to come back. And I know some of you are looking on your machines and you don't have those features. If you don't have a 1055, that's a feature of the 1055. This is going to do borders, you guys. This is different than the quilts. Like in here, we went into quilting. This is borders, and it's two-tone, so two-thread or single. When I click this, it's awesome. So we have a lot of people that are now using their embroidery machines to do their quilting. And so on here, I can select a border. And again, I'm just giving you an idea right now. And I can say, okay, set, and there's a lot more to this. It then asks me, okay, this is the border that you're going to do on your quilt, or maybe it's a block. So now we're getting to more specific features of like the 10 needle in particular. Let's say I want to go in, I could tell it it's anywhere as small as a 4.27 inch block, or maybe this is my border all the way around my quilt. And maybe my quilt is on here 90 inches wide. So I can go in, I could say 90 and set. And my length on here is 108. I can go as big as 118 on both. And if I were to hit set, it's now asking me one more thing. And again, this is a little overwhelming because this is further than where we need to be. I'm just pointing it out because it was on there. But in here, it's telling me how big do you want, how wide is your border now? Think of a quilt. You have the length and the width, but now what's your width on your border? Well, maybe mine's a 3-inch border. I can touch set. It will then create, if I was to keep going with this, it would create all of the files that are needed to do around the border of that size of quilt. And it's awesome. All right. So that's part of this machine in particular on here. So now that we've covered all of these, the one that we haven't really done a lot of is this one. And this is where I kind of want you to go in and venture. Now, 1055 is different than a 1050, and a 1050 is different than a 1000. But with that said, you're going to be able to kind of play and see some things that maybe yours can do and things that it can't do. These are alphabets. This is where we are going to go in, and we're going to be able to make a lot of different changes to it. So I'm going to start with something very simple. Let's just do this block style alphabet. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to do brother. And again, you guys are welcome to try this on your machine right now. I'm going to do lowercase. So there's brother inside here. Now, I need to hit set if I want to accept it. But I got to show you something that's pretty cool. There's a return key on this machine. So the return key means I can go into here and I can say, okay, and I want to also put in 2022. And I can return down and I could keep going and we could be doing different things. So in order to not confuse anyone, I'm going to delete that next row. I just, again, wanted you to see that it was there. From here, I have some options down below. Now, one of my, whatever I do on here with large, medium, and small, it's only going to make the change to the letter that I'm on because of what I have selected right here. So if I go in and I touch medium or small, look what happens. That R gets really small. Okay? If I wanted it to do it to all of them, that's where I would select this icon. And now it does them as together. I don't think the 1000s or the 1055s do it, or the 1050s do it that way. I'd have to look and see. So that's a cool feature that's on there. We also can, I'm going to go to big again. We also can array. If I go into array, I can take and I can array it. I can do an arc above, minor arc or major arc. Down here, this allows me to adjust how much of an arc we're going to put into that. And again, all of this is on screen. There's kind of a knocking noise that the machine will make when you're past the adjustment of there. So that's what that little guy does on here. Arc below, minor, arc below, major. Vertical, you can adjust these as well just by moving them here, or you can go back to normal settings. Okay. If I wanted to individually get to a letter, I can touch it up here. That's one way. So if I want the O, I can just tap it and it puts little highlights around the O. Or I can use my arrow over keys on here and you'll see it happening on there. So the reason I'd want to do that, maybe I want to change, I'm going to go to individual lettering, and maybe I want that one letter bigger or smaller than the others. I could do that. It's up to me. You just now have a lot of flexibility, you guys, inside your lettering. We can go into spacing. And in our spacing, I can adjust it left and right. Look what's happening. Again, through Zoom, it's a little tricky. I'd say, why is it doing that? But I'm just going to tell you, because we have selected this feature, which means we want to keep things independently. So the one that I have highlighted is the H. So as I'm spacing them, I'm spacing from the H over. I'm going to put these back to normal. If I wanted them to be equally spaced, I would need to select this icon here. And that allows me to equally space those. So I really like that they've added this feature because sometimes this is called kerning. Sometimes if you have like an N or a line like this, an H, maybe even next to that T, sometimes that straight column makes it look like the spacing is too close. You can then just space one of those letters out using that function that's on there. The next thing that we have, this is awesome because I've done this too many times. So I've gone in and I've laid out my lettering and then I decide I don't really like that font. Well, I don't want to start all over again. So what I do is I go into here and I can just select a new font. We couldn't do that before. So now we have the functionality on screen after putting everything in to just select that font and keep changing it and playing with it. That's what that guy allows us to do here. If I had multiple lines of text, yeah, I broke that apart, but that's okay. If I have multiple lines of text, this would allow me, let's actually change that. So we're going to get over here to the R and then use my return key because I was in between that. So multiple lines of text. And now I wanted to go in and I wanted this. So right now, these letters are center justified. This allows me to change it to right, left, or center. Any questions? No? Not yet? All right, well, we'll keep rolling. So the next thing that we have, you guys, is let's go back out of here. And I'm just going to select a font. I didn't point this out, but this is the space key. So if I needed to have a little space in between letters, that little icon right there is the space function. So if I touch that, that puts a space, and we'll use an N. That's more appropriate than another letter that we could put in there. So we're going to go back and we're going to say, touch the little house that's on there. That takes us back to normal. So we've now covered everything that's on this part of the screen. The next thing that we're going to look at or talk about are these little icons here. If you have a design, which we don't, because this one is a brand new machine, I haven't saved anything into it. If I saved a design into the machine, that's where it would show up, is in that little icon of the machine. So just to give you guys an idea, that's a really big design. Let's do something like that. That one's cool. Let's say I have that design and I've added, because you just saw how to do this, I want to add my name to it. And I want to place that. So I want that to be down here. If I like that and I want to save that, there's a time where we can do that in the machine. It wants me to change the frame. So that wasn't very smart to have that smaller frame. I'm going to switch the frame real quick to the bigger size. Because that is one thing that your machine's going to do. It's going to tell you if your frame is too small, it's going to limit you on what you can do. So once we've gone through that, what's going to happen now, you guys, is I could go, if I was in End Edit, there's going to be a time where you, after you've gone through some of the stages, where you could select memory. When I select memory, it says, where do you want to send it to? These should look familiar. We haven't explained them, but they should look familiar because those are the same icons we were just in front of. This one saves whatever you have on your screen to the machine. That means you want to keep it there because you're going to use it all the time. This one, these two are on the side of your machine. There's two slots on the side for USB ports. You can put a USB port in either one of those and it would save your design from here back to the USB stick. If I touch this guy here, that means you're directly connected to your computer. We don't have as many people using that as we once did. Most people, they don't want to always have their computer that close. But there is a slot on your machine on the side to directly connect your machine to your computer. There is in here design. I'm going to tell you guys something really quick. There's a software that you can go in and you can download, and it works on all machines. It's Brothers, and it's Design Database. You can Google it, Brother Design Database, and it's a download. And what that will do is that will allow you, if your machine is capable, like if you have one of these newer machines, you can wirelessly for free. So some machines you can do it, but you have to buy an upgrade to make this happen. You can wirelessly transfer designs back and forth with Design Database by Brother. So that's a really, really awesome tool. And even if you didn't have the ability to transfer designs, another cool feature about that software is it shows designs in thumbnail view on your computer. Meaning when you download a design, usually your computer just shows it in some generic icon. Well, if you go into Design Database, it will show it in the PES file. It'll show you what it looks like. So it'd show this file on your screen. But if I'm using that software, and there's other softwares, Palette 11 by Babylock, P-Design 11 by Brother, which are full digitizing softwares. If you have one of those machines and you want to send the design wirelessly, you can do that, or that software. And when you send it wirelessly, this is where it will hide. Okay, sorry. I'm going to go back and save this to the machine. So I just saved it to the machine. So now I'm going to go back home. This is where, excuse me, this is where we just were talking about. So I'm in the home key. This is where I get my designs. This is where I get my alphabets. But I want a design that I saved into the machine. Well, now when I touch the machine, there will be a design and it's right there. So I could select it. I'll turn that up. So there's my design. I could select that. It'll pull it up. And if I hit set, it would put it in that menu for me. All right. There's not a lot of space memory-wise on the machine. Some people say, well, how many designs can I hold? It's not a number, you guys. And the reason that it's not a number, I mean, is every design is going to take up a different amount of memory based on the size of the design itself. Okay? So that's going to be that section there. This is really easy because this allows you to pull designs from a USB stick. So if you have a USB in the top slot, it has the same icon over here on the side. That's where you would go to pull in your design. Your machines are going to pull in PES or DST. D is in David, S is in Sam, T is in Tom. DST or P is in Paul, E is in Eric, and S is in Sam, PES. Those are the two file types. If you're using something different than that, your machine's probably not going to recognize it. Okay? If you were to select this icon, your machine is going to try and read the USB slot that has the USB icon in the mouse, just like it does here. It has the same icon on their side. If you were pulling a design directly from your computer because you have them connected directly, that's what this is. When you connect this machine directly to your computer is going to read this machine as another drive. So just like when you put in a USB stick into your computer, it says that's drive whatever, your computer chooses that, it's going to read it the same way. Lastly, this is where if you send a design wirelessly, which I use a lot now, your machine has to be connected on the same network, which is where we're heading next. So your machine has to be connected to your network and your computer has to be on that same network in order for them to communicate back and forth. So where would I go to do that? If I go into this little icon right here, which is settings, and I scroll over, and again, the 6 needle will probably have different number as far as the page it's on by number. But on the 1055 on here, the 10 needle, I keep saying 1055, but we also have the baby lock, which is also the 10 needle as well. Once I scroll over, so on this one, it's on page 9, I can first enable, so I have to go on and turn that on. And then I would go into Wireless LAN Setup Wizard. It would go in. It's going to find all of the different options that are available. So that's where I'm at least right now here. If I choose Nuttall's Guest 2, it wants to know my password. I don't know the password in this store, so I'm not going to continue on. One of you could chime in and probably tell me quicker than I could figure it out. It's like Love to Quilt or something like that. But I would type it in and I would hit OK. Once you've done that, what would happen is you would have a status of those being connected. We don't have a connection because I didn't finish the connection in here. Once you do that, you're now set. You don't need to go into other. That's totally different. That's when you can't get, when it doesn't automatically set, you can go in and try to use different settings, but it's pretty much just going to be automatic on there. So as long, oh, and then see this little thing where it says app guide? If you were to click on that, it's going to give you these little codes, at which point you could take your phone and you could go in and you could scan the little icon that's on there, and it'll take you directly to where you could go in and I could download some things. So one of the things that I could download for this machine, and on the Baby Lock, yours is going to take you to the Baby Lock version. It's all the same, but it's going to take you to the Baby Lock version. So I could go in and I could hit enable, and what's going to happen is this machine has a function that has an app that we can use that will monitor what's going on with the machine. So if I'm in, which I never do, but if I was in cooking dinner, nobody wants that. But if I was in there cooking, I could be looking at my app and it would show me the status of my machine. Pretty cool. The thread breaks, I'm nowhere in the room. I can look down, or I get a little notification on this guy and it tells me what's happening. Okay, so that's cool. And it's easy to get to. So nobody has to ask me what's the name of it? How do I find it? That's it. Just scan it on your device and it'll take you in to there. All right. So that's really cool. That takes you into the wireless. Down here is where it shows this is another way. You see a little icon here? So these, you guys, are quick ways to get into different areas of settings. So I could also go into settings and scroll over, or I could simply touch the wireless icon menu and it automatically opens up the settings into that wireless section. All right. Any questions? Have we lost everyone or no one? Everybody's good? Man, you guys are really good, or you're just overwhelmed. I'm not sure. It might be a combination of both. But there's a lot going on in here. I'm feeding you like 12-course meal all at once. But you're doing good with it. In here, this is our clock. I can go in and I can, because I haven't done this and I intentionally left that here, I can tell do I want the clock on or off? I do want it on, but it won't let me. It's knocking. That's because I have to set it first. So today is what? It's the 11th, and it is 2022. And the month is already in August, and 11. Right? You can also tell it how you want that formatted. I'm going to leave it like that. I don't want 24-hour. I want AM, PM. We're on PM here. So it is, by my calculation, it is 7:49. I'm going to do 7:50 because it's going to change by the time I get there. And now I can turn this on and it allows it. And down here, I now have all of my information, the date and the time. Some of you, it won't show all of that, just depending on your, what 10 needle you have, or 6 needle or whatnot. So we've now set that. The next one over, we already went into this icon. I'm going to revisit that really quickly because that icon has multiple uses. So when we touch it, one use is, hey, I want to thread my needles. And I'm on needle number 2, but I need to go to needle number 8. I can do that in here. I can go to needle number 8 just by touching needle number 8, and it moves it over. Another function in here is, hey, I want to go and assign my threads. This isn't the page to do it. But once we're in here, I can touch this icon, and that takes us directly into the settings page, which we started to get familiar with earlier. Another section in here is we want to oil our machine. That's great. When I touch that, what's going to happen is the machine is going to move And in the hook area, when I take on here, so if I were to go in here, you guys, I click that icon. If I touch OK, down in here, you're going to see it's going to do a rotation of the hook. And later on, we'll zoom in and show you what it's looking for. I don't necessarily find it necessary to go in there to oil it, but it's what is on there. So we'll go with it. So the next thing that we're going to do, that I'm going to show you that's in there, let's go back to our screen. Inside here, so now that we've oiled the machine, it now puts everything back. This guy is cool. So this is actually one of my, it's one of my favorite tools that's in here. And it just depends on what you do. So meaning what type of embroidery you like to do. I like to do a lot of applique because applique, to me, it's the cleanest embroidery that you could ask for. So it always looks great and it takes less time, all of those things. So let's assume that we were embroidering and now we're ready. Some of you might be saying, what the heck is applique? That's another, we'll have to explain that later if you don't understand. Well, no, I'll kind of explain it as we go. So let's say I want to do an applique. An applique, you guys, is actually, this is appliqued on. It's a little further back so you can't see it as well. But this is material that is stitched on the outside to hold that in. That's applique. So let's say I'm going to do this applique. I would have this shirt hooped. So I'd have this big blue shirt hooped. And then I'd have a design that's made for applique, like we have those built-in applique letters that are already on there. And what we would do is we would go in and we would hit the go button. And it would do a straight stitch on that shirt of where the B is supposed to go. Okay? Now, I could then take a big piece of fabric that's white, because it's white, and I could put it across there so it's where the B is. Or maybe I have something like a scan and cut, which I have, that I could go in and have it cut out all of my letters first. It's a really cool feature. So if I have one of those, it cuts those out. But here's the problem. I've got everything's underneath here, and I definitely don't need my fingers underneath my needles at any point. I've done it. It's not a good idea to do that. So I could take, and that icon that was on that machine up here, this one, watch what it does to this when I touch it. It tells me the carriage of the embroidery unit will move. Keep your hands, etc., away from the carriage. It pulls everything forward. So now I can put in my applique, my B and the R and the O and the N and all that in here because it pulled this tray forward. And then once I'm done, I touch this icon and it takes the tray back in and then it can embroider. So I don't physically have to go like this. Normally what I would do when I don't have that function or that feature is when I have my hoop on, it's now underneath here that I got to get my hands. I don't want to do that. So I hit that function that was on here. It pulls the whole tray out. Now I can do whatever I need to do. I know up on your screen, it might look like my hands are under the needle, but they're not. You can see this is the needle plate. So the whole hoop moved forward. I can put do what I need to do on here, touch the same icon, and it takes it back underneath the machine so it can embroider. So I love that icon. I think it's a pretty cool feature on the machine. So back into here, we can go and the last one that we're going to show you. This is a picture, and what they're trying to show you, you guys, is they're trying to give you, the icon is supposed to be a picture of this. In order to drop that down to travel, and on the 6 needle, you wouldn't have to worry about that. It doesn't work that same way, so you don't need to bother. This icon has no significance for you. But in order to travel with that machine, the best way to do it is you would want to drop that thread mass down. Well, you can't do that if you're not in the right position. So the icon that to do that is this last one. And you're going to see the head of the machine move when I touch it. And up on top, you're going to see it didn't have to go very far. So it didn't move very far. I'll move it so it's a little further away. So when I touch that icon, it automatically puts it in the right position for me to then unscrew these two guys up here. And then as we do, that whole thing will drop down for traveling purposes. Please do that when you bring in the machine. I mean, if you don't, you could damage it, right? So if you're going to bring it in and you want us to service your machine, I would definitely recommend that on there. Okay. So let's kind of mosey on back to where we're at on here. We are making really good time. You guys either are really getting it or I'm going to see you guys enrolled next session. I don't know. So I'm going to go with you guys are really that good. So in here, we've covered everything that is a part of that screen. All right. So again, we've covered everything on here, all of this. My design center is going to have to be done as a different class completely. It's where you can go in on the 10 needles. You can go in and you can create your own designs and your own appliques, and you can literally draw on the screen. I'm going to just give you a quick little hangout idea, but I could go in and I could literally be drawing on here and I can make my own design, and it would go in and it would embroider. Let's do this. So I could pick a design in here. I'll go with that one. And we'll make it red. I don't know what it's going to show up very well or not. But it would do that. It would actually embroider that. We use this in quilting. We use it for a lot of different things. I could create appliques through here. So that's got to be a totally separate class because that's 3 hours all on its own. And it will be called Design Center and IQ Designer. Baby Lock calls theirs IQ Designer for that. Okay. So we're back out of there. The next thing that we're going to be going, we already went into here. You can play with this. This is just where you can get your videos and you've got different guides. There's an app guide in here. Again, it's the same thing. So you're going to find on this machine, there's multiple ways to get into the exact same things over and over and over again. And we're going to go back into settings. So again, we've covered everything on this screen. There's some things that are blanked out that you will learn about soon. We're going to go back into settings. So I want to hit up the settings menu and I want to kind of go through this, not too quickly. So if you guys need me to slow down or back up, you just got to speak up. If not, I'm just going to keep rolling through. So in here, this is where you can go in and you can tell the machine, this is how I want it to display the frame. Now, on the newer 1050s, the newer 10 needles, Baby Lock and Brother, on here, it now recognizes the actual hoop, and the 1050 might be this way, 1055 definitely. It recognizes the actual hoop, and all you're telling it is, do I want to have it show as a grid with a grid? So before, let me show you before blank. Turn this on, grid. Okay, and that grid does match up, should match up to your grid that you have in there. If you're choosing, I think it's the 1 inch, maybe it's smaller. I'd have to look at the grid. It might be the 3/8. You can choose on here what you want to see, how you want to see it. If you just want to see something like the center on there, well, that will just now show the center. So setup allows you to go in and make those changes. So from here on out, if yours doesn't look like my screen, that's probably where the change is. That's probably where the difference is. In here, this is saying, how do you want the threads to be displayed? Do you want them done by number or by color? So remember how I put my threads in by number? I guess I would want them by number. But I could also say by color. It wouldn't matter on that. I'm going to keep it by color. Or do you want it done by time? So by number. And then on here, it's saying this is all different types of threads that you could select and work with. So this is assuming Whatever design you bring in, it's going to try to match those automatically for you to your colors. Is it perfect? No. Is it worth trying? Yes. All right. So a design that maybe doesn't have isocord thread or Floriani, it's going to try to change those to match that as best as it can. Embroidery background color. Right now, my color is just that white. But if I change it to red, that's what it would look like. I could hit the OK button and you guys could see it, but I don't know that's necessary, but that's what it would do. So we're going to go back into here. I don't want it to be that, so I'm going to put it back to this. Okay. So thumbnail background color. Your thumbnails, again, are these guys right here as we select them. So when I go in, I say I want those to be yellow. It's showing you what it's going to do. I'm not going to hit OK because I think you guys, I will hit OK, but I'll actually want to put those back to normal because I think you guys ought to already get that. Okay. That's in that setup screen there. Let's go to scroll over to page 2. Thread trimming, on or off. Everybody's going to say, when and why would I ever turn that function off? Well, there's going to be times because maybe you are doing quilting in the hoop and you don't want a bunch of little knots showing up on the back side of your quilt. You might want to go in and change that, and then you can draw up that thread manually. We'll have to teach that, but then you can choose to clip those. So you can turn that on or off. I'll tell you another time that I had to turn that off. Your machine, once it goes a certain distance. So once your machine, you guys, goes a certain distance out, so it's going from here to here on a satin stitch, your machine's automatically going to trim those if it's too wide. So I did a design once, and I was not in the room, and if you've ever ran your machine, when it trims, it has a certain noise. That's kind of the noise that it makes. Well, not thinking, I hear this noise over and over. And because the distance on my design was such a wide satin stitch, all the machine was doing, it was going down, doing a stitch, trimming, going over, doing a stitch, trimming, which means there was no stitches. So I came back into the room and it's like, I thought it was done and no, it didn't do anything. So you might find there's times where your satin stitch is so wide that you need to change that setting. Okay, so I'm going to go in because you can also have some control over that. And the controls that we have would be right here in the settings. So this is saying, hey, if there's a stitch that is bigger than 0.2 inches, I want it to be a trim if trim is turned on. If you find that it's trimming stitches out that you don't like, then maybe adjust this up. But guess what's going to happen? It's going to stop trimming some of the stitches that you want trimmed if they're too small. If I leave it at 2 inches and I've got these little trims that are going from 1.2 to the next, if they're not bigger than 2 inches, it won't trim those out. So you kind of have to be comfortable with that guy that's on there. How do you know when you've got things back to normal? Well, normal is highlighted in black, as you can see on here. So if I were to move this around, if I want to go back to regular settings, I move it until it's highlighted again. That's the original settings. DST settings. These are also thread trim commands. So here's my recommendation, guys. There's a lot of things that I'm talking about that you're just never going to use. So I'm going to put it to you the way that my grandmother put it to me. I was teaching her how to use the computer, and one day she finally said, Eric, my megabytes are full. That was good enough for me. That meant she doesn't have any more capacity to take on more information. Some of this stuff, you guys, it's probably not worth your time. For some of you it is, or effort to remember all these things. I think just remember this point. I remember hearing in class, there was, if your machine is trimming things that you don't want it to trim, there was a setting. Well, if that triggers something to you, that's all I need it to do. Because then you can get a hold of me and I can say, oh, this is where it's at. And you're going to go, okay, that's great. Okay, so I just need you to remember that you do have control over some of these things. Short stitch delete, it's going to delete stitches that are shorter than whatever distance you put in there. So if you have a design, I really like this because sometimes you have a design where it's just too densely digitized. It's got stitches on top of stitches and it's a problem. Your machine will try, I say try because it's not always perfect. It'll try to go in and get rid of some of those extra stitches that somebody that designed the design may have done. Standard tail or long tail, that just means when it trims, if it's constantly coming out of the needle, sometimes that's the fabric itself that can be causing that, just the loft in there and the bounce that happens when it trims. If you find that it's doing that, then change it to long, and that'll give you a little bit longer tail to work with. Basting distance. You can activate a basting stitch, and you can choose how far away. Don't worry about that because we're going to do it. So don't even think about it or don't even ask me a question right now on that because we're going to do it. Then you can ask all your questions. Acceleration. I don't know, I kind of prefer it on high. That means when your machine is operating, there is a restart speed. So you'll notice when a machine is operating and then it trims and then it moves to the next spot. It starts off slow. That's the idea, is it's going to it's going to bury the stitch a little bit better. I find it to be okay to put that acceleration at high. That means when it restarts, it's going to restart quick instead of having those several slow stitches that happen. It's going to go quick and then go. So if you adjust that to high, that's what you're going to get. But you can have issues with it on high that it doesn't lock as well, meaning it doesn't tie as good of a knot. So play with that and decide what works for you. We've been through this page. We talked about this page. There's two features we really didn't get into very deeply. A couple of them. One, this is by color. You can scroll down to get to those. You can also use this to move through them. There's some features in here if you're doing applique that you can assign a certain spot as a trim or a fabric or a placement stitch. Again, just remember that you can do it. You don't have to know how right now. You're going to explore that when you get closer to doing that on your own, and then I can help you individually. This is your speed. This is cool, guys, because I can go into here and I can say, hey, on needle number 5, I'm working, maybe it's a metallic thread. I could tell it on needle number 5, I want you to only go at 400 stitches per minute. And if you look, it's the only one that has on screen on that. The other ones just say Isacord or Floriani. This one says the brand of thread, but it says the stitch speed it's going to go at. So you can individually slow a thread down. If you have a thread that just seems to want to give you issues, slow it down. Okay? On this one, this is no thread.
Eric?
That means it's
Eric?
not, yes.
Sorry. Is the speed like that, is that available on, is that just on the 1055?
No, I think that one's on the 1050 as well.
Okay, I'll keep exploring. Thank you.
If it would be on that same screen. So if it doesn't show it up there. The other thing too is you want to go in, you guys, if you have an older version of these machines, go in and make sure you've got the update.
Yeah,
some
that's
of
the
this
next thing
stuff-
I'm going to do.
Yeah, some of the stuff
Oh.
was put in through an update.
It has to be anchored, it looks like. Because I can pull it up
Yeah,
on
sure.
the threads I have anchored, but not on the ones I don't have anchored.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
So you'd want to anchor them down. I anchor all of them. Because again, you guys, if they're not anchored, you're saying to the machine, hey, you decide whatever you want to do with my threads. I don't know about you, but that's not how I'd want to go. That's not how I like to go about business.
We
I
just
don't
thought
want
we
any
had-
surprises. When I hit the go key, I want to know it's going to do exactly what I expect it to do.
we had only anchored the two that we always want on there, the black and the white, but I think we'll go back and anchor more. So
Yeah, I anchor
was wondering what that's
all of
for.
them, and you're going to find out later when I teach you how to manually thread sequence. And it
right.
might not be your preferred method, and that's okay. But when I teach you how to do that, you're going to understand why I anchor all of mine and the reason that I do it that way. We'll
Awesome.
hit that up next session.
Okay,
next
thanks, Eric.
week. You bet. So that means no thread. That means you're going to do something without having thread in it. So there's times where you might want to activate that particular function. So you're going to tell it, hey, there's no thread in there. If I were to go in and say there's no thread, but I go in and I say needle number 5, so I just move the machine over and I try to do the needle threader, it's going to tell you needle threading button has been disabled. What it's saying to the machine is, hey, he disabled that because there's something in there that he doesn't want the needle threader to be used on. So one of those could be cut work needles, because you can get for your machine cut work needles as long as the design is designed for that. And that's not this class, so I don't want to go too far into it. But again, it's one of those things that if you say, hey, that perked up my ears a little bit, let's have a private conversation and I'll explain that to you and help you figure it out. Okay? Let's go back into here and let's put this back on. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Okay. So we gone through that page there. Next one, this is getting into all features associated to your camera. So we're not going to mess with that right now. I usually turn this on a lot of the times, the fabric thickness check, we're going to leave it off. So during class, everybody's just going to leave it off so we can kind of leave it as is. You can tell the machine if you have a table attached or a tubular frame table, which we're going to get into later. And then this is also dealing with your camera. We won't mess with that tonight. In here, this is a page on here. I can turn the opening screen off. So I don't want it. If I don't want everything to come up the way that it was, I can turn that off. I can change the echo mode that's on here. So echo mode goes in and it puts it at like 30%, I think, power, something like that. If you want to annoy everyone that you work with, you can turn this shut off support to like a number, and then the machine will just automatically turn off once it's been on for that time where it's just sitting there. I've done that on accident teaching this in the class and left it on there. And one of our machines got checked in for service because the machine kept turning off after a certain time. So if it's running, it won't turn off. But if it's just sitting there, it's like your iron, I guess. It'll turn off. The next thing that we're looking at is we've got screensaver. You can tell it when to activate, what screensaver you want to use. This is where I didn't mean to hit that, but this is where you could go in and you could have your USB stick in and you could select your own screensaver. So you could download and customize. These are some that are in there. I'm just going to leave it. So later on, you guys can go and put your kids' pictures in there or whatever, or your last project, or your unfinished projects for reminder that you need to get some stuff done. Screen brightness, pretty self-explanatory. You can adjust that here. So that's adjustable. Remember, when you get to the number where it's highlighted, it'll be in black. Light brightness, that's the brightness on the machine itself. You can adjust that. Notification brightness. I don't even think this machine, oh, it does. It blinks on the, so the older 1050 and used to have lights up by the threads. They got rid of that, and now they just go off of the lighting on the machine down at the bottom. Operation volume, pretty self-explanatory. It's the volume coming out. Notification volume, same thing. Notifies you when something's done. It has a different sound that it makes. You can go and change inches into millimeters, whatever there. I prefer English because I can't speak any other languages, so that's on there. My kids think I speak different languages. They say I speak bleep, whatever that means. You guys can figure that one out, I'm sure. We can go to page 7, and that's where if you're gonna, you can actually, you guys, you can get up to 4 machines and you can link them together. I have customers that do that. That way, whatever they're making, whenever they're sending designs over and working with them, it just sends them all the same thing. So they don't have the same setup on all 4 machines. This is saying that you can choose when you send a design over, if they're linked, how to do that. We've already talked about turning on manual color sequence. That's because you're now going to choose what threads are used when by manually selecting them. So you're going to learn that a little bit later. Thread sensor, you can turn them on or off on this one. I don't know that you can do that on all the machines, so you might check that. That's a pretty cool feature because you're going to have a time, it'll happen, where your thread sensor, which again is up in the top, okay? So there's going to be a day where your thread sensor needs to be cleaned out, needs to be replaced, needs something. It's not working. But it's going to keep going off saying you have a broken thread. Well, you're going to want to keep embroidering because you need to finish your project before you can bring it in. So you can go into there and you can turn off that thread sensor. Get through your project and then eventually bring it in so we can do a service or whatnot. So that's a spot that you're going to want to be able to have available to you. Okay, so the next thing that we've got, oh, what happens to my camera? Don't do that. Give me a second here, guys, because I don't know. It's still on. Interesting. There we go. You guys just needed a close-up of me. So in here, we've got thread sensor, mouse pointer. You guys, when I use Design Center, I plug in a USB mouse into here. I find it a lot easier to use a mouse. And I could plug a mouse in right now, and instead of touchscreen, I could use the mouse to do that. Some of you are going to be more comfortable doing that. Some of you are not. But that's the type of pointer that it's going to work off of if you plug one in. Let's go to number 8. This is, again, trip count, trip time, total time on here. So we reset those numbers when we service them. So I'm going to give you guys some things to think about too, because I want to save all of us the awkward moment of, if you bring your machine in and we service it, most of your machines today, they have a trip counter or an hour counter. They have a counter, stitches, what have you. And if you bring it in and you have it serviced, most of the time, our technicians, they record those numbers. So if they record it and then you take your machine home and you have it for like 30 days and then you say, I just barely turned it on and now this, and this are happening, and they go in and look at the trip counter, they're going to go, well, that's kind of weird because you got 1 million stitches since you had it in 30 days ago. So just know that it's already in there, because it's just an awkward moment when the technician has to say, something's not right. There's definitely been some stitches on here. And then we have to kind of do that. It's a great thing, though, because now we know for all of us kind of where that machine's at. It's not uncommon to have millions of stitches on these machines. Okay. We kind of went through this screen already. This is where you go in and you set up the wireless and the app and all those fun things. And then this is also showing the latest version, and the new update is installed. If you were connected wirelessly, you could actually, this is another reason that I would recommend setting up your wireless. You can have the machine go on and it'll wirelessly look for the updates. So pretty cool. You have to be a little careful. Sometimes, you download the newest update and that update needs an update. I usually tell people wait 30 days till you update. I like to have ours updating automatically because I want to know if there's an issue with an update. I want to know it before you do. That's my goal, ideally. So
Eric,
again, recap. Yeah.
The Wi-Fi availability feature is not on all these machines, right?
Correct.
Is it just on the 1055, or if I update, could we get it on the 1050?
You can there's a purchase upgrade for the 1050 that allows wireless capability, but it's an external device that gets hooked into the USB slot, or actually you have a compact flash card slot. I have to look and see. Either way, it's external that gets connected and then it gives Wi-Fi capabilities. for a 10 needle.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
And the functionality still works a little bit different because it's an external device.
Got it.
So, all right, we've gone through all of the settings page. There's a couple that we're going to revisit. We've gone through all of this. We talked about this up here, the home key. There's a item that's grayed out. I'm going to show you that next. So if I have a design, whatever the design may be, it's maybe this design here. Let's go with something a little smaller. I'm going to get more designs. Let's go with that guy, a little bit smaller. If I were to touch on here, it was grayed out. It's no longer grayed out. It's going to show me an idea of what that design is going to look like in the hoop that I have on the machine or selected. I could also go in and start looking at other hoops, because up here, you guys aren't going to see this as well. You can see little pluses maybe in there, but up here, the only one that's grayed out is the smallest hoop, and it's grayed out right here as well. But this is nice because it gives me the idea of what it looks like in that hoop. And you always want to use the smallest hoop possible. I can zoom in with the little plus, and that'll zoom in. But another cool feature in here is, watch this. When I touch that icon, it gives me an option. I can hit the play button. It's going to show me how it's going to embroider out. I love that, because sometimes I just need to see sequence. Okay. And I don't know that that's on all of the machines. So that's a function that's definitely on here. This is why I like to have all the machines in front of me, but
It's on the 1050 as well.
awesome. Sometimes we're just, it's the world around us is definitely, I'd say everybody can agree, it's getting better, right? But it's still not as we once had it to be. Like it used to be, I could order product and it was 10 days out. Now I order product and they don't even give me a time frame until they have it in their warehouse, because they're afraid to give me an estimate for fear of shipping issues. So it's become complicated, but we're getting closer. So that's that function right there. Okay, so we can bring it in, and that's what that little guy is up into there. So down here, I'm going to click on something that will show this a little bit better. Let's do, let me go out. Okay, so we've got this cool design here. This function down here is mirror image. So when I touch that, watch the design. It mirror images it in the other direction. Okay. Large, medium, and small, sometimes that's deactivated, meaning that it doesn't have anything to do with what you're working with. It's usually just with lettering on that. Let's go back in. And let's say I have a really cool design, whatever that design is. Remember what I have to do to get it in. I have to hit set. So now, you guys, I'm going to show you how we start to build. So we've completely covered screen 1 tonight, and we completely went through setup, which is fantastic, because I'm going to get us into a new, hopefully we stay on this trajectory, because on the last class, what I ideally like to do is I like to really demonstrate hoops and different hoop options that are available for you guys. It doesn't always work out that way, but we're making great progress. So I'm happy with where we're at. So on here, first thing that we're going to have when we come in is an area that I told you I'd describe because it was blank on the other. But right here, this is showing you the height and the width of your design. Size. This next icon that's right here, or the numbers that are at 0, 0, that's showing you the X and Y placement coordinates. So watch what happens when I move it off of there. That changes that vertical line's number. Same thing happens if I move this. That changes the horizontal line's number. So you know what I sometimes do, you guys, out of habit, because I know that something bad can happen when I try to embroider. After I get things kind of set, sometimes I just grab my camera from my my phone, and I just take a picture of this screen. Because if something happens, I know that I can get things back to normal. I know that I can get this design, if I changed its size, back to that size that's there. I know that if I moved my design on the screen, I know that I can, if I have to recreate all of this because it's not saved, I know that I can go in and do all of that. Now, do I do it every time? No, I'm not always that diligent. And do I usually, when I have a picture, I never have a problem. So sometimes taking the picture, I guess, just kind of scares the machine into doing everything right. Because it's whenever I forget to take a picture, that's when it's like, oh man. But I've gotten lazy with it. And the reason I end up getting lazy with it, part of it is we have that function, the camera that's in here now on the 10 needle. So that camera kind of makes us lazy in ways, or more efficient as well. But it's a great idea. I would say on a 6 needle, even though you have the laser alignment, this makes a lot of sense to really just take a picture. So now I just showed you, let's go back into size, because I just sized it. I didn't do anything. I didn't show you anything spectacular. Okay, so first thing I can do, actually, let me do this. I'm going to go into rotate because I didn't finish explaining this. If I go into rotate, you're going to see a number next to this in degrees. So if I were to rotate it, it changed to 90 degrees. So again, all the information that I did on screen, I just grab my phone, take the picture, and if I have to do anything to recreate it, to realign it, it's there. Let's go back in. Oh, this is telling you, believe it or not, it says that this design has 20 different threads. I don't see it, but there must be a lot of shading, which there probably is. That's okay. So that's telling me how many threads it's going to use. We will get into the camera later. We're not ready for that. I mean, you are, but I'm not. So we're going to go in and we're going to go into sizing. So when I go into size, I now have options. This is really important to understand this. We didn't have this on our machines before, those icons. This first icon is traditional sizing. What that means is the machine is going to limit you. It's going to say, so it used to be that, and it still is the recommendation, you can go 20% bigger and not worry about having a design issue or a flaw showing up. You can go 10% smaller and you don't have to worry about having a design issue or a flaw showing up. That's kind of the idea. So when we have this on here, I can go bigger, but then you're going to hear a knocking noise. That knocking noise says, hey, you're as big as you can go. Another thing that we have on here, do you guys see how I put those little boxes around it? I can go into here and, well, maybe it's not in this screen yet. Should be. So I can go in here and I can make it smaller. That is proportionally when you see the arrows pointing all in one direction in or all the arrows pointing out, that means it's proportionally making it bigger, proportionally making it smaller. This is reset. This is going to make the design taller or shorter, narrower or wider. We need to invent this one because we could sell that if we could just hit a button and we all just go narrower. But it's on my list of things to invent. The next thing that we have on here, you guys, that I need to point out is that limited us based off of those restrictions before. If I select this icon, understand it's telling me it's going to put it in the original design. I am now telling the machine, hey, I don't want to be limited. I want to size this and I want you to recalculate the stitches for me. It's going to attempt to do that. It won't do it with every design, but it will with some designs. So now when I go bigger, I don't hear that knocking noise. There is no knocking noise. I was able to go much bigger on there. I can go much smaller. I can reset. I can go taller. I can go wider. And the machine is going to try and add stitches to help maintain that design and its density. But it's saying when you select that, you just know that you're taking a risk a little bit. Okay? So that's how we go in and we do our sizing on these guys here and put it back in the center. So that's sizing. Rotating, 90 degrees left, 90 degrees left and right, 10 degrees, 10 degrees the other way, 1 degree, 1 degree, 1/10 of a degree. You can also hold it in. So I'm holding it in and going at a 1/10. If I held this one in, it would go at 10-degree increments. Reset, puts everything back to normal.
Eric,
Okay? Yes.
back on the sizing part, you know, the one that you says that it knocks, yeah, the one that's highlighted. Is that only on the designs that are in your system, in the system, or what about designs that we purchase?
Some designs that you bring in, depending on what they were created in, what softwares and whatnot, it'll allow those to be sized and do the same thing.
Okay, so it depends on where, okay.
Depends on the design, because the properties that were saved into that design are what's going to be crucial for the system to know what to do with it.
Awesome. Okay, thanks.
You bet. So we add rotation. Next, we already did mirror image. This is just another place to do it. Density. So on here, and again, this doesn't always work, okay? So sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. This will go in and it'll try to change the density of the design. And this really, I don't know that it works. It works with the designs that are built in, but most designs, it's going to have a hard time adjusting that density. What's that? So anyway, density is kind of it's one of those things that feel free to play with it. You know, feel free to do whatever you want. It's your machine. It's your home. But it might not give you the exact outcome, but you know, you could try it. If you go up and down in the number, the higher the number, so let's say I'm doing towels. Well, I want the design more dense because it needs to have better coverage to keep, you know, to handle everything over that is coming up through the pile of that fabric. Or maybe I'm minky. I want it more dense. Or maybe I'm working with a quilter's cotton. Maybe I want it a little bit less dense, so it's not quite as dense. So that's density, and it's not again, it doesn't work on everything that you work with. This one is pretty cool. You can come into here, and they have a feature, you guys, called color shuffling. Okay, and so I can touch this, and when I do, it's going to go in, and you can still change these and choose your thread colors and all that. Now, I don't want to confuse anyone, so I'm going to try to keep this very straightforward. Whatever you do in here, because we have manual thread sequencing turned on, it's for looks only. Meaning it's only going to do, let's say I go into color shuffling. I can tell it, and there's options. I don't want to spend a lot of time in here, but there's options. Maybe I don't want to have 20 threads. Maybe I want to limit it to just 10. Well, I can tell it I want it to go in. It's going to do its own thing. And it just gives me, and I can keep going in and hitting refresh. It will keep making, based off of thread colors that are compatible, it's going to keep giving me all different options, variations of that. At any point, I could select that design, and that now becomes, if I hit set, that's how the design would embroider out. However, we still have not touched manual thread sequencing, where we go in and tell it that this is the needle that you're going to use. So some customers, when I show this section, it's for, all it is so you can see it and change it in here, but that is not assigning your threads to anything. Okay? All it's doing is giving you different options. So when you're ready to tell the machine what threads to use, it's giving you something to look at and base everything off of. So you got to be a little bit careful with that. We'll come back into this guy, this one here. This one is a duplicate. So when I touch that, it duplicates that on there. I can delete that one. So that's what this is. But if I've duplicated that onto there, that's going to duplicate. This guy, this is actually And I got to see, maybe we can't do it if we've done a duplicate. Let me add something. Give me a second here. Well, that's cool. Okay, so now, let me just see. Give me 1 minute. I want to verify this. Okay. So I'm going to start over because I didn't want to start explaining things without pointing certain things out. So we've got this design in here. And let's say we bring in another design, something a little smaller. Let me find, let's do, oh, I'm going to bring in one design, and now I'm going to add a design. So here's one design. I'm going to add another design, and this design is going to be a little bit smaller. Sure it is. Yeah, that'll work. So we got these two designs in here, okay? Well, right now, everything is moving independent from one another. So there's an option down here. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this icon is not available. See that? And notice on here, it's not allowing me, once I added these other items in, it's not allowing me to do anything with density. So I should point that out. On here, before I could do density, now I can't. So it's a one-shot deal with that typically. So let's back that in. So once you start adding, you're changing what the machine sees as options. So we're going to set that, set. So here's this in there. Well, the reason that that's grayed out is that's saying you have to have multiple things selected. Well, how do I do that? It's actually this icon right here, this icon. Once I select that, it allows me to go in and I could select both of these. So I just selected both. And that will allow me to go in. And now when I move it, they move together. You see that? So it groups them. This little guy here also, this groups everything on the screen. So these are different. If there was only, this one allowed me to pick which ones I wanted to have grouped. The other one groups everything. But look what's happening. Now I can't deselect them. Now they're just together. So sometimes I get that phone call, hey, I grouped them and I don't know how to get out of it. It's okay. You go into here, you turn this off, because right now these are full group. This one is just so you can manipulate it and move it together. That's all that's for. Now that I've released that from being fully grouped, I can say, I don't want those together. That's what this does. Anything that's selected, I want them together. That puts them back to being individual pieces. Guys, you don't need to remember all this because it's very visual. Again, you're going to try it and see they're going to do what you want it to do or it's not going to do what you want it to do. And if it doesn't do what you want to do, just go back one step. In here, this is going to be, and I can't use that right now because there's nothing to do it with, but if I were to select these, because right now I want to select both of them, so I just showed you how to do that. We're going to hit this. We're going to select them. So I have them both selected. Once they're both selected, now this icon, I can choose that and I can say, I want everything centered. It'll automatically center them for me vertically. Or I want everything, I want them all to match at the top of the design or at the bottom of the design, or I want them centered horizontally, or I want everything to the left or to the right. It's justification on alignment. That's what that guy is. Let's go in and get rid of, I don't need two designs to show you this next thing. So I'm going to delete this. I could have just deleted the one. I should have just done that. But here's our design. The next thing I want to show you is this guy right here. And we're going to cruise through these because I want to finish this off. We're not going to cruise through. We're going to get all the way up to right here because this is where we can control some lettering a little bit more. So we'll come back to next week and we'll hit that up. I need you guys to remind me that we made it this far, because normally we are not using this screen in night number 1. So we're doing great. So right here, this is going to automatically create an applique for me. So I could turn this butterfly into an applique, and I can have it be an applique with a shape around it. See that? So I'm going to make that shape be around my design. I can move those separately. So that would be an applique. So what it would do, you guys, let's say I have a white fabric. I could stitch this on my white fabric, and then I can turn it into an applique. It will give the properties of the applique that will straight stitch. I could cut that out, that straight stitch out. So now I'd have a butterfly. It's like a patch. I could have a butterfly on my white fabric that I could then go rehoop another fabric. Let's say I have a red fabric that I want to applique this onto, hit the go button. It'll do the rest of the straight stitch that tells me, I already explained applique earlier with the Broncos shirt. It will tell me where to put that, and then I can turn that in. This is creating an applique out of your embroidery design. It's cool. Applique distance. Remember, we talked about that's a feature. The basting is what we talked about. This is saying the too big size to add applique. That's because the design itself is really big on there, but there's other ways that we can work off of that. So that's applique. This is used in conjunction with Design Center. So I'm going to show you guys something cool that I don't normally show in this class because we have a small amount of time here. So I have this image. It could be whatever. I want to create a line that is, and I can choose the distance, by the way. How far out from this I want this line to be created. So I can start adjusting this, but I want 0. I don't even want it to have a distance outside of that line. I could even go, excuse me, I could even go narrower, but I don't want to do that. So anyway, I've got this line that's created. It says to put this in memory. So what's going to happen, you guys, this is so cool. I can go into memory and it tells me, recall from my Design Center stamp pattern list. And it shows me the icon in the list. So watch this. So now I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go into my Design Center. I'm going to do what it said, which it said from pattern stamp, which is that icon right there. And I've got all these pattern stamps, but remember this icon? That's the same icon I used in that last screen. So I'm going to click on that and look what I have. What it created was an outline. It's not the embroidery file. It created an outline that I can now use in Design Center. So let's say I want to quilt around that design because I've already embroidered it onto my fabric, and now I want to quilt around it in the hoop. I could go into here. I could do a simple stipple, which is not as cool, and it'll stipple around it. Where you see the dark red, that's where it's going to actually stitch. So I can do that, or I can get even more creative. Maybe I just love that, or I could go into here and there's a whole bunch of other stitches that we can do. Maybe I like that design. It'll do that stitch around that. Or maybe I just love the silhouette of the butterfly. And inside that, I want to do something like this. So it's really cool because what we're able to do, I did a different class on this a long time, well, not a long time ago, a couple years ago. In Design Center, I taught people how to go online. We download this Christmas tree, simple art. When you digitize in here, it's got to be simple artwork. But we download this Christmas tree and it said Merry Christmas through the middle. Anyway, I taught them how to download that. It was just an image, a JPEG, pull it up into Design Center and create it into embroidery. And we did some fun stuff with that. But Design Center can be really, really awesome. again, it's more of a class than what we can do in here. So that was what that icon does, though, is it creates, I'm just going to stick with the same design. It creates the outline to match that. So you can then go in and you can design around it. Okay. This one here, this is a quick way without going into Design Center to just stipple around your design. You can adjust the distance at which it stipples from the design. So how far away from the design it's going to go. So I adjusted the distance to be further out. That's why you see that gap now. This changes the spacing in the stippling. If you go too high, it's just going to be really big. So this is not going into Design Center. This is just going straight through the machine. Or you can choose to echo around the design. And same thing, you can adjust the distance, you can adjust the spacing. And it doesn't have to be necessarily quilting. Maybe you're a home deck person and you want to create, something cool on your fabric for a pillow. Okay, so this is all built into here. That's what this is. So that's our quick tour for tonight. So we're going to be back at it again next week. So I do have something that I would like to quickly have a conversation about, or do we go, I don't remember how far this class goes. Does it go into, we don't go into Labor Day in here, right? I don't remember. It's only 4 classes, but I think the Zoom thing I put in there was beyond that. So today is the 11th. So we go 11th, 18th, 25th. And we do, so is it Labor Day weekend? Is it the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, right? Like that's the time. I don't know that it matters with the Thursday class, but does anybody have an objection to doing class still on the 1st? No? Okay, then we're leaving it how it is. Some people, I didn't know if some people are going to be like, oh, we're all going to be gone on the 1st. So please don't do it on the 1st. Sounds like we're a go. I have another class that's different. So tomorrow I teach a long arm class with Handy Quilter. Oh, that's going to be tough. It's same thing, but we do go into that weekend. Like I think people are going to be gone on Friday. So I don't know that I'm going to give them the same option. All right. Are there any questions that you guys have I can answer for you? No? Man,
Eric?
you guys are either really getting this or maybe I'm getting better. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting better at teaching or explaining. So thank you guys for showing up. There's other classes that you're going to definitely want to take in addition to this. So we'll have something to do with Design Center that we'll have to set up. That's not set up currently in the system. There's an embroidery customer course class. You don't need to do, you want to sign up for embroidery customer course. You can tell them Brother or Baby Lock or Bernina. It doesn't matter. Well, it kind of does. Tell them you want the Brother or Baby Lock one. And you only need to come to the first class. The first class, that's in person. And it's one where you don't have to bring your machine. It's actually one that I should do over Zoom. It's one that would lend well to Zoom. However, I do like that one to be in person because we hand out samples that I want you to touch and pay attention to. So I would want you to sign up for that. That's the one where we talk about needles and thread and stabilizers and just how to have great embroidery. Next week, I'm going, if you guys remind me, so somebody needs to be my reminder. I want to talk about how to test a design because we do that in that embroidery customer course class. But I think it's really, really important for everyone that has an embroidery machine to know how to test a design. So that's the plan.
I have a question. This is Miriam.
Hi.
Hi. I was wondering, do you have bigger hoops? Can you use bigger hoops? Does this machine, I have the 10 needle. Wonder if they have bigger hoops than what we got.
Yes, Miriam. So there is one that's a 14 by 14. It's just under, they label it as a 14 by 14, but it's going to be just under 14 by 14 inch view or size. It's available. It's optional. And what's going to happen on that, and I'm going to teach you guys on the last class, my goal always in the last class is to show you as many optional accessories that are available for these machines. And in that class, I actually used the big frame, the 14 by 14. So you can look at that. The way it has to work, just so you know, is the design has to be, if you're going to venture into that, let me pin this real quick. If you're going to venture into that size, then you're going to want to have PE Design 11 or Palette 11, because your design has to be split, because you only have so much space between this part of the machine, the front side, and the back side. So, meaning right in here, if I switch this camera, so in here, there's only so much space, open arm space, to work inside here. Okay? So because of that, that is limited to 7.8 inches, 7.9 inches. So what has to happen, and normally I would say this never works with other machine brands that we've tried, that we've done this with. However, it really works. Oh, that's not the one I want. It really works on here quite well. So what it does, it splits the design. That's why the software is pretty useful for this. It'll split the design into two sections. It'll send the design over to the machine as one design. You click on that one design, and then it gives you part one. You embroider part one out on this big frame. And then, and again, I'm going to show you guys how to do it. With your camera, you then take the hoop, you rotate it, and the camera goes in and it realigns for the second part of the design, so it matches the first half. And then it embroiders the second half out. So it is available. You're going to want to see how it's done, which we're going to do. And I would recommend you're going to need a software to do that. So if you're going to go into that side, then we should be talking about software purchase as well, if you don't already have it.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Any other questions? All right. I guess this was the A team. So we will see you guys same time next Thursday. I won't be in such a rush, hopefully, because my other class that I taught, my first class I taught in Pleasant Grove, and it went from 2 to 5. And anyway, long story short, we're going to start there an hour earlier. So I should be able to be here a little bit quicker. Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend. If you guys have questions, the email that I used to email you was Eric, ERIC, at Nuttall, with 2 T's and 2 L's. So nuttallbernina.com. So Eric at nuttallbernina.com. You guys all have my email. That's how you got the Zoom link. So if you have questions, you can email me. I can tell you for the next 4 weeks, you might not get the quickest response as you want, because I'm teaching 3 different class sessions, yours being one of them, and got some prep work to do, but I'll do my best. All right. Good night.